Okay. I found that it is important to know that the sustainable development concept, as it is seen now and used and practiced and embraced by countries, by politicians and academia, has a long history behind. And first of all, to understand, for those who are not very familiar with this relationship between security and development in the United Nations system, I tried in the first slide to show that, the main purpose of the United Nations, which is developed as a concept during the time of the Second World War, was peace and security. The international cooperation to solve other problems, including economic or social problems, was not a main priority, although it is mentioned in the charter. That makes a great difference because there are peace enforcement options available for the United Nations, while cooperation for development is simply optional thing, and it needs everything that is done is on the way of recommendations. So what is very important for the economists among you and political scientists as well is that development was not an object of study for the economists during in the first years after the war. The issue of underdevelopment in the world economy was overlooked completely. The most famous book that was taught into all universities, that of Paul Samuelson, did not even mention the kind of problems that developing countries might have had. It is true that the war took time at the peak of the colonial years, but it is the merit of the United Nations to come with the first studies on development and underdevelopment, and that happened in the years 49 and 51. There were these three studies which are precisely about the new problems of the underdeveloped countries. And what is remarkable is to know that two Nobel Prize participated in that research, Arthur Lewis and Theodore Schultz, who received later on Nobel Prize for Economics. So what was new about these three studies is that they raised awareness of the need for concerted action at international level to accelerate the development of poor countries. Now it doesn't seem to be big deal, this issue, but believe me, at that time there was no concern and interest for these issues. What happens in the after the month of the Second World War was this Marshall Plan for Europe. It was seen from the perspective of the interest of the United States, of the interest of the Western Europe, so nothing to do with the interest of developing countries. So we may consider this these three reports I mentioned. The measurement I didn't take time to read and to tell you more about that because it's time consuming, but they might be considered the first development agenda of the United Nations, which were the consequences, many consequences, but one of them is the establishment of a special fund which would provide assistance in the fields essential to the development of the less developed countries. So you might not see the importance, but the regular budget of the United Nations did not contain any resource devoted to such economic assistance to developing countries. So the establishment of this special fund as a result of the three studies is a very important event. And also just to show how the United Nations started to pay attention to what is going on in the development of the third world is the establishment of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Economic Commission for Africa, and also the establishment of the United Nations Committee for Developing Development Planning. Again, I was amazed to see how often the United Nations use the Nobel Prize for Economics for their own activities. This was the case of Jan Timbergen, who was the first chairman of the United Nations Committee for Developing. Now, another surprise, in the 60s, the United Nations launched this, let's say, a political and catchword, which is about the United Nations Decades for Development. I said it was a surprise to see that actually the country that proposed these decades were the United States, with a very important statement made by President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who addressed the General Assembly in 1961. I'm reading that because it is important and it makes sense for the history that followed that event. He said, political sovereignty is but a mockery without the means of meeting poverty and illiteracy and disease. Self-determination is but a slogan if the future holds no hope. That is why my nation, which has freely shared this capital and technology to help others, now proposes officially designated the decade of 1960s as the United Nations Decade of Development. Why is that important? Because that comes after the emancipation of the former colonies. So the newly independent countries became a majority in the United Nations. So their interest elevated into the agenda of the United Nations. Of course, the United Nations reacted immediately, and the Secretary General at that time, Bhutan, said that at the opening of the United Nations Development Decade, we are beginning to understand the real aims of development and the nature of development process. So this is not just, let's say, a hypocritical political statement. So the Secretary General recognized that is the beginning of a new era. We understand the real aims of development and the nature of the development process. And he gives another definition of development. Development is not just economic growth. It is growth plus change. And that is, again, something that marked the difference from the previous, era. What happens during that decade? First of all, I will not insist. First of all, is the fact that the issue of releasing resources from the arms race for disarmament was for the first time put on the agenda. And the countries took very seriously that issue, considering that the diversion for peaceful purposes of the resources now development to military expenditure could and should be of benefit to all countries and would lead to the improvement of social conditions. On the institutional side, the developing countries created a collective voice and an important negotiating power in the negotiation on development by the formation of the Group of 77, which most of you belong to countries that are members of that group, the famous G77, which of course now includes 135 countries, so it's no longer almost double the numbers. So that was very important because in the negotiations, you had a sort of collective voice, not just individual, former colonial or other developing countries. Also, equally important was the creation of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD. UNCTAD is known, and UNCTAD was the first entity in the system that really was specialized in the promotion of the interests of developing country. The first Secretary General was an economist coming from the south, from Argentina, Raul Prebisch, very, very famous. And the special fund, I spoke about it in the previous slide, transformed in what you know nowadays has been the United Nations Development Program, one of the most important development institutions in the world, not just in the United Nations system. So then, more or less, the practice was continued. The General Assembly launched a new development decade, the second one. And what the resolution that launched that decade recognized that partial, sporadic, and half-hearted gesture, however well-intended, will not suffice. So it is a kind of statement that the development decades was a good initiative, but it didn't produce the expected results. But now I need to go back to it. I want to signal here the fact that it was at this point in time during that decade when developed countries committed to provide assistance to a minimum level of 0.7% of their GDP. Of course, we know that nowadays only I think 5 countries are up to that level. But again, it was a very revolutionary move forward proposed by the United Nations. Another event important was the Conference on Human Development, which for the first time linked the issue of the protection of the environment with a responsibility to develop. They said in that conference, 72, so this is where many things started in the United Nations. They said that the natural resources must be safeguarded for the benefit of present and future generations. Meaning that we are not allowed just for the sake of development to exhaust those resources and limit the chances of the future generation. Another very important political moment was the adoption of a Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of States adopted in 1974. Why was that important? As I told you, international cooperation for development was supposed to be an optional issue for the states. With this charter, although it does not produce mandatory or obligations for the state, was very important because for the first time indicated that the states have also some duties, not just rights to development. An event which at its time was very resounding and very important and raised the stake of development was the new international economic order. I won't insist on that because this is a subject on itself, but I put it here because you have to know that this was probably the most ambitious documents ever adopted in the United Nations, because really it contains proposals that were meant to fix the issue of unfair trade between developing and developed countries. Excuse me. Okay. The most significant event for the third decade of development was the emergence of the right to development. So this was a sort of marrying happily the issue of in the family of human rights, marrying the civil and political rights and the economic and social rights. Because during the Cold War, this was a problem. This was an issue of dispute between East and West, and also between North and South. The Western countries were champions of the civil and political rights. The socialist countries felt stronger on economic and social rights, while the independent countries also they gave priority to economic and social rights. So the United Nations did its best by adopting 2 different conventions, 2 different covenants, one on civil and political rights and one on economic and social rights. Both were adopted in 1966 and effective 10 years later. And a consequence of this change of optics was the declaration of the right to development. Also, we have to note at this point in time the Brundtland report, the report of the World Commission on Environment and Development, which gave the first widely accepted definition of sustainable development. Now, of course, we enrich the concept, but this is what, at the university, I learned myself that it means sustainable development. Sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It is what I told you before. Then in the 90s, we had this wave of optimism that everything is possible because the Cold War was over. And the UNDP launched another revolutionary idea, and that is human development. Again, we had a Nobel Prize involved in the conceptualization of the human development. The UNDP produced these human development indexes. They were quite controversial seen at that time, but they became a very important reference point in assessing the performance of states in development. And we are all very familiar now with a sequence of such human development reports. Very briefly about countries in transition. So on the theoretical level, it appeared that the three worlds, you know, the first world, the capitalist world, the second world was the socialist world, and the third world was the developing countries. With the end of the Cold War, this categorization, you know, lost importance. And for a while, we were faced with a notion of countries in transition. What does it mean, countries in transition? There was a resolution of General Assembly, which, although it doesn't give a definition, they refer very precisely to the Eastern European countries, which were not appropriately involved in the world economic system. And they need a gradual convergence of views on economic policy. The point is, in other words, that transition meant at that time the end of centrally planned economies and the triumph of liberal capitalism. So for a while, this notion stayed on the agenda, but then once that some former communist countries sought membership of the European Union, then the issue of transition was no longer an embraced concept because some countries were obviously taking the transition towards the European Union. And then the Agenda for Development of 1994, it is a pity that it is neglected nowadays, because that was a very successful attempt to incorporate all theoretical and practical dimension of development on which the United Nations elaborated for decades. That was a mix of peace as foundation, the economy as the engine for progress, the environment as basis for sustainability, justice, and democracy as good governance. And that particular agenda had the good imprint of Secretary General coming from the third world, Petru from Egypt. So, and there is something that he said, and I would like to quote from that, because it is a very frank testimony of what happens during the Cold War. So he said, the concept of development indicates of effort to reduce poverty, illiteracy, disease, and mortality rates are great achievements of this century. But development as a common cause is in danger of fading from the forefront of our agenda. The competition, be careful, the competition for influence during the Cold War stimulated interest in development. The motives were not always altruistic, but countries seeking to develop could benefit from that interest. Today, the competition to bring development to the poorest countries has ended, so there is no more competition. Many donors have grown weary of the task. Many of the poor are dispirited. Development is in crisis. We have to believe the words of Petru. Then the UN came at the next stage with the Millennium Development Goals. What is important about this program is that it was more ambitious and complex than previous agendas and strategies. And what makes this especially its programmatic nature? What does it mean? They had specific target in the time frame, so it was not just, you know, a sort of it was a very rigorous commitment for development. And even if not all the goals, maybe half of them were really achieved, it was very important that the international community committed to do that. And then we come to the last point, which is the Agenda for Sustainable Development, which in my opinion is the most ambitious and comprehensive document adopted by the United Nations since the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But I guess in view of the topicality of the agenda in view of your interest. I guess most of you are experts already in that agenda. I just wanted to say that there is a long story between the first notion of economics in the United Nations in the 50s and what we have now on the floor. So the agenda for sustainable development included all dimensions: the human dimensions, the peace dimension, the security, the resources that could come from the end of the arms race, the human aspect of it, what they call at some point in time the human face of globalizations. And then we have a very complex notion and program of actions. And I'm glad that many of you who are working for that are here present. And I hope that my presentation was of help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and very welcome to you all, and assalamu alaikum, wherever you all are. I think the beauty of this kind of platform, we all can join from anywhere in the world. And I was listening Petru very carefully, and it's a wonderful presentation. And I'm very honored to be part of this conference today. I'd like to discuss the reality check of UN SDGs and its application by universities. And my agenda, or the areas I will highlight, the introduction, method, and some background on this area. Then we created really two hypotheses mainly: research grants and funding on SDGs, research publication on SDGs, and research collaboration, some policy prescriptions, and our case study as Prince Sultan University, what we are doing accordingly. So as you all know, like, the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, every year they produced a report, and the recent report saying we need a 50% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2030. Then some of the statistics are really shocking, and it's just a wake-up call for all of us, the policymakers, academics, the community, and so on. So the total amount of food lost or waste globally amounting nearly 1.2 trillion US dollar. 821 million people, 1 in 9, still go to bed on an empty stomach each night. Massive human suffering. Over 3 billion lives at risk. And there was an article in the World Economic Forum. It's saying, are we about to throw away around $25 trillion in waste? So we produced a white paper recently in collaboration with Times Higher Education, PSU, and Digital Science. We discussed on the UN SDG linked research across the developing and developed world, and analysis of 15 years of research data. Because as you all know, how the university can contribute to SDG is a big issue. And UN, UNESCO produced many papers and so on. Still, a lot of things need to be done. So these areas were overlooked by the policymakers, and we thought we can work collaboratively and see some findings which would be helpful to accomplish the SDG goals globally. So this is the QR code for the white paper, and we have, like including me, 4 other colleagues are part of this white paper. So part of the background, as Petru was discussing, the Millennium Development Goals from 2000 to 2015, representing a groundbreaking commitment. However, there were considerable or significant gaps that had to be addressed in the MDGs. And in particular, MDG failed to acknowledge the inequalities faced in middle and low income countries. So accordingly, the 2030 agenda for UN SDGs, which were adopted by 193 countries in 2015. So the key pillars or the three pillars for the SDGs are economy, society, and environment. And these are the SDGs. And in terms of research and innovation and ecosystem, the SDG framework encourages collaboration and the exchange of research practices and expertise. Now, few of the SDGs during the COVID-19 and the post-COVID era, became very significant. SDG 1 and SDG 2. As you all know, in 2022, end of 2022 and beginning of 2023, all the UN agencies declared 349 million people from 79 countries were in danger, in poverty and food insecurity. And 26 countries, they, like COVID, they spotted as a hunger hotspot. 18 of the countries were in Africa. So, and again, the whole discussion today, I want to highlight SDG 2016, now 2023, 7 years gone. We have 7 years left, many things to do. But I hope after the 7 years, the agenda will continue. It will not finish here, right? Decent SDG 8, during the COVID, we know unemployment increased significantly. Still, we are facing a lot of economic crisis around the globe, including the high-income country. And Professor Allam, based in the UK, you know UK economy better than us, right? So it's becoming very difficult. So I think there need to be some urgent areas to be addressed by the policymakers. SDG 3 became very popular from the COVID-19. SDG 4, we all know the GDP contribution or the higher education budget, percentage of the country's budget, very significantly around the globe. So in terms of the SDG classification and grants distribution, what we found, number of grants are consistently higher in high-income countries. And this percentage change in grants fluctuates year by year. However, low-income countries more volatile. And the SDG classified research grants have increased consistently in higher income countries, and substantially in recent years, the low-income countries are prioritizing this area. So in terms of low and lower middle income country, what we found, India consistently top ranked in lower income countries, and untapped research potential across the Egypt, Ghana, Indonesia, Pakistan, and etc. There is an increasing interest and investment in research in these areas. Research and development expenditure percentage of GDP varies significantly around the globe. In terms of the SDG grant distribution in the Middle East and North African region, we see the massive variation in number of research grants from 2010 to 2022. Qatar appears to have a strong commitment to research and development, and the research and development is concentrated around only a few countries in the MENA region. Now, the question from the United Nations, the Innovation Index. So if you see in terms of the research and development cost and the quality of output, there could be another discussion and another key area. It's not necessarily how much we are investing on research and development, but how much quality of patents and other commercialization we are producing in terms of measuring the quality. So this could be another area of discussion by the policymakers. So growth of SDG research over time, we can see the number of SDG research output, high and upper middle income countries, the annual growth rate is 16%. For the low and lower middle income countries, we see the annual growth rate is around 19%. So since the implementation of the SDG agenda, growth rate for low and lower income countries becoming slightly higher. So SDG research output share In general, there is a huge disparity between the groups. Some SDGs are exhibiting less disparity. For example, SDG 2, zero hunger, SDG 1, no poverty, and SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. And the increase for lower income countries over time, especially with the SDG 4, quality education, and SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. So SDG rank priorities by country income. This graph, it reflecting the relative activity by SDG and income category, proportion of total publications was grouped by income category, and the clear varied research priority by the different region. Lower income countries prioritizing zero hunger, no poverty, clean water and sanitation, and decent work and economic growth more than high income countries. So we all know, uh, based on the income classification by the World Bank, different groups, different regions are focusing some of the SDGs more than other SDGs. So in terms of international collaboration, increasing trend in international collaboration and collaboration across the income regions based on the publication or the research publication, East Asia and Pacific dipped from the 2020. Notable increase in collaboration across income groups for both regions. For example, in Saudi side, we have around 70% collaboration of our total research productivity in Saudi Arabia. So with Middle East and North African countries having a consistently higher percentage than Europe and Central Asia. So this is a really encouraging and push from the government and the policymaker side. So research output and collaboration trends, just example of some of the SDGs, 13 and SDG 3, we see the notable decrease in collaboration in East Asia and Pacific region, the MENA and South Asia exhibiting sharp increase in collaborating research. And from this graph, we see the research playing a pivotal role in shaping policies and driving socio-economic development and innovation, making policy citations a vital indicator for real world impact. So now the way we measure the citation, the ranking, and so on, I think the policymakers, the universities, the United Nations, they need to work together. They need to discuss how the university's performance could be measured. Is it based on the traditional citation or the societal impact, which is beneficial for the country, for the region, and the global impact as well? Some of the best practices from the developing country or the low income countries, what we can learn from the low income countries. Ethiopia's commitment to consistently incorporating trust markers in its research publication does exemplify its dedication to transparency and integrity in scientific endeavors, positioning as a leader in following the best practices in the research integrity. So this is just an example of types higher education impact ranking data 2022. We see the understanding inequalities in SDG research output. So, for example, SDG 1, we see the high income countries score, average score for university in SDG 1. The upper middle income and lower middle income is closely, very close. But there is a huge gap between the high, upper middle, and low income countries. Similarly, SDG 2, but here, zero hunger, the lower middle income countries are higher than upper middle income countries. But for SDG 4, the high income and the upper middle income are higher than lower middle income countries. SDG 5, a similar picture, high income countries, upper middle income countries are higher than lower middle income countries. So in terms of the policy prescription, what we see, we talk about the gender equality and other inequality and inequity. But in terms of the research, because we all know the research can make a solution or a tool for addressing the community challenge, the country challenge, and so on. So how we want to envision the research for a country level and the global level as well. and how the developing country and developed country work together to reduce this significant gap, which hasn't been discussed earlier. So, what we come up with some of the policy prescriptions. Greater collaboration is needed. Policymakers and stakeholders must incentivize the SDG research. In particular, local and international policy makers should incentivize SDG research, where the high-income countries may collaborate with the low-income countries to reduce the ever-increasing gap on research productivity and the quality. The local and international policymakers should provide local and national, regional, and international strategy for conducting impact study on SDG-related research, through which the solutions of current issues and challenges could be identified. Now, I know my time is going to be up. Very quickly, I will focus on what we are doing in Saudi as a Prince Sultan University as a case. As you all know, in Saudi Arabia, around 1.62 million students in higher education, nearly 5% of the total population, which is above 35 million population. We have around 36 private universities, 29 public universities, but more than 94% of the students are in public universities. In Saudi Arabia, the government is spending 7.8% GDP on education, which is the rank number 3 in the world. However, the gross expenditure on R&D was equal to 0.5%. These are the Global Innovation Index pillar on Saudi Arabia, the Market Sophistication, Global Innovation Index, and so on. And as you all know and familiar with the Saudi Vision 2030, which is the blueprint of all sectors development, including the education, the women's participation, the government aiming 30% by 2030. And you see the impact, the 2020, during the COVID, that commitment has been achieved. And now the women's participation is around 35.6%. The key area where is the education sector, the bachelor's and or equivalent level, the unemployment rate is high, which is 14.9%, especially for the three subject classification: natural science, mathematics, statistics, arts and humanities, and education. The unemployment rate is very high. It's not only the case in Saudi, it's a global picture. Different countries may have, like, other subjects can be included or excluded, but the policymakers need to address significantly. Should we delete those subjects? How we can increase more skills on the sustainability side and so on, so they can be employable. And the climate action, as per the Crown Prince and the Prime Minister of Saudi, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, according to him, climate action will enhance competitiveness, spark innovation, and create millions of high-quality jobs. Because still people have misconception. The climate is like, costing everything. So we need to see as a business model, the impact model, and so on. And this is the agenda for sustainable future for Saudi. And the Saudi, as you all know, aiming to be net zero carbon country by 2060. As part of Prince Sultan University, Center for Sustainability and Climate is a think tank, and we are aiming to address the Saudi Vision 2030 SDGs by inspiring action, developing leadership, and building the networks. And we rightly mentioned the climate justice. Here, the climate justice means there is a knowledge gap. The students, they need to understand that part. And we are the first university to be a signatory of SDG Accord. The first unit to place the net zero carbon by 2060 in Saudi. And we are the first university to emissioning 5,000 tons of carbon recently. And we are the first university as a carbon neutral certified university in the MENA region. And recently we became the among the top 6 universities in Saudi to be rated US 5-star. Most importantly, on the environmental category, we are the only and the first university in Saudi to have recognized as a 5-star on the environmental impact. This is our Times Education Impact Ranking. We have our strategic plan we call the CAR. Of course, not the energy efficient CAR. Curricula, awareness and initiatives, research, policy, dialogues, and impact. And this is aligning with the United Nations strategic plan, people, planet, prosperity, and peace and partnership. We also the first organization in Saudi developing 4 phases or 40 years strategic plan to become net zero carbon university by 2060. We have in terms of the sustainable governance, we have the sustainability ambassadors, student sustainability ambassadors, sustainability fellows, and all the programs at PSU. We are integrating the SDGs into the curricula, and not only the SDGs, we would like to take the lead and globally on the agenda, the sustainability. If somebody from the architecture, they are having the architectural course on the sustainability, sorry, skills, so they can go to the market with that skills. So it will help all the disciplines. We have the carbon management planning committee are overseeing, and we have around 11 sustainability policies at our university. We have the global advisory board for the government side, the ministry, the United Nations, like all big four that part of our global advisory board of the think tank. There's an article of PSU. We are placing the SDGs at the heart of our mission. This is our sustainable development report. Every year we are producing a very detailed report on accomplishing all the SDGs. We have the first student SDG club in Saudi, and they're working on 3 areas: acting on environmental climate, building new sustainable community, collaborate, change, and impact the community. We are the first university where we introduce the carbon literacy project in campus. So all the stakeholders within the campus, students, faculty, staff, everyone should have the knowledge on carbon literacy. And already 20 of our faculty have been awarded as a carbon literacy certificate. We are eliminating the plastic water in the campus. We are also introduce the tree mapping initiative towards net zero carbon. So we can measure how many trees we have, how much carbon dioxide we are emitting every year. Recently, 2 of our students, they went to the United Nations on the part of the Saudi Young Leaders Exchange Program, SILEF, as young leaders on climate change. We are also part of the HESI Higher Education Sustainability Initiative Action Group. We are collaborating with regional and local ministries. First, we had a meeting with the Bahrain Sustainability Minister. The Education Minister visited us. Also, then the World Food Program recently they came and discussed how we can work together in terms of the recent global crisis on the 349 million people in danger in terms of food insecurity. And then we have the students' collaboration with the PepsiCo on the Zero Waste Challenge. We had the tree mapping initiative, and also we planted 500 trees recently. The United Nations came to discuss the green economy, environmental protection, and Saudi Vision 2030. We have the strategic collaborator with think tank Indonesia, HESI, United Nations Global Compact Network, Saudi Arabia, EAUC, and so on. We have also 3 think tanks: Global SME Policy Network, Global Education Policy Network, and Global Islamic Finance Tax and Zakat Center. We contributed significantly on the policy side for the government, on the G20 side. Our accounting program became the second in the world second private university in the world outside the United States, having both WCSB business and accounting accreditation. And our curricula, our project with the Ministry of Commerce have been recognized by the World Bank and the IFAC as a global model curricula, and the skill-based curricula. We participated in the University of Glasgow Global SDG Congress with the part of the UN Day in Saudi Arabia. Our students, our faculty are regularly arranging the awareness session for the faculty, for the students, and so on. We have our journal, and this is one of the top 10% journal in the world, precisely top 6% journal in the world, produced by university, and we are highlighting the SDG element as well. And the beauty and the objective of the journal, establishing the journal, this is an open access. So my presentation, where the developing and or high income countries, there is a barrier or huge gap. So our idea was to have this open access, so people from the African countries or the East Asian countries, they can have free access on all these articles. And we have around 192 members from 44 countries, around 130 universities. People from Harvard and Oxford, they're also publishing here. Thank you all very much. And I strongly believe we together for a sustainable future. Thank you.
So I would like thank you very much for this opportunity to Universitas Airlangga. So of course, I'm on behalf of the Universitas Airlangga would like to share what we do. I think continuing or furthering what the Professor Petru already mentioned about the UN SDGs and also the policy, and then continue by Professor Mohammad that already also mentioning about the best practices and the result of many kind of university doing for achieving the SDGs. So I think I will continue also for what we do for this kind of the achieving and also learning experience among our students, and based on the community activity for student emancipated learning experience. So then the relevancy of the student study, learning, and then for their job market. Yeah, they already mentioned by Professor Mohammad that unemployment will be also related to the subject or study program of the student. So why our university then sharing also about the outcome-based education in the curriculum to make the student more experienced, not only in the campus, but also beyond the campus to study with the community. So because we know that these challenges of the SDGs that we are already done until maybe 2030, but we know that after that, we will entering the mega trend in 2045, from 2030 until maybe 2045. If we look this, the differences that already also mentioned by Professor Mohammad, that we are doing this SDGs now is more in society, economy, and this kind, I think, and environment. This is very important, society, and then policy and economy, and also the environment. So when we move then to the mega trend 2045, we can see here there's so many then we do with the circular economy. So why in Indonesia, in our Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, and also mandated to our university in all Indonesian university and also Universitas Airlangga. So then we do the circular economy for the green economy, blue economy, and also health and well-being, and environment, which means conservation and also the tourism. And of course, with the food security of our food resilience. So the circular economy, it will be seen in the next of the mega trend after it is SDGs achieving in 2030. So we not only we thinking about the SDGs 2030, but we should also have the strategic how about after 2030 in the megatrend of our young generation that now becoming our student. So why in this, then we would like to share what we do for our students to more strategic in study with the community. So we know that also already mentioned by the previous professor speakers that also inform that we are in uncertain condition. If we look here with the COVID-19, before we look for this kind of the data, we know that the mobility of the people is very different since 1933 until maybe 2020. We can see here in the blue color of this slide. I'm sorry. Is this in this slide we can see that we can see that this is a very full of people, mobile from one country to other. So it's not like in 1933. It's very different. So why also with the climate change, and we have also the infectious disease transported by also the people who mobile, who do the mobility, like we already also faced to the COVID-19 of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So for this kind of the climate impact, so we now also very important to do for the biological surveillance. That is also the one our focus, our priority for the biological surveillance. In Universitas Airlangga, we have Infection Disease Institute, we have Infection Disease Hospital before the COVID happening of us. So we have also teaching hospital, we have the institute, and we have the hospital special for infection disease. So then at the starting of the COVID-19, then we are also ready to help to support our government at that time in 2020. Only two institutions that we can do for the analyzing of the COVID is Universitas Airlangga and also the EDMAN. So we are very important, the climate impact to our environmental change. So we need also to analyze the effect, and then tool and method for the biological surveillance will be very important. So then if we then make the relation between the SDGs number 3 for the good health and well-being with the climate change, the interaction of that, so we can see here so many emerging and re-emerging also happening among us. Actually in the SARS-CoV-2, infected of the pandemic among these 3 years. So the important thing is we should do the global environmental health in the meaning of health security, food, and also environmental security. Why? Because environmental is not only the biological material that among our like virus, bacteria, but we also concerning the non-biological material. So it's been the environmental like the oxygen, carbon dioxide, the climate change with the emission of carbon, anything about non-biological material is very important for the effect of the biological material. So then global environmental health, I also propose this kind is very important in the future. So then how about the student, our young generation that will be continue until the achieving in 2030. And after that will be continue for the mega trend. So we know that the curriculum, then the study of the students should be then give them the skill, the competency, the character quality. And we can see here, this is the strategy in lifelong learning and also the competency in the era of in 21st century. So we can see here the multidisciplinary aspect approach for the student will be more important. So like mentioned by Professor Mohammad, maybe the unemployment is more in 3 subject learning, right? Subject program like natural science and then social humanity science and also social science, and the last one I think 3 components that already mentioned by Professor Mohammad. So we should then give them the 3 pillars of higher education. So in Indonesia, there are three pillars. It's not only education and research, but students also study in community. So these three pillars will be together as the outcome-based education for our students. So then Universitas Erlangga do this because this one is and another is very synergized. The outcome-based education is synergizing among education, student and community services. This one will be a learning experience of the student and also student doing the research with the community. Can be also done with the research in laboratory, but can be also done with the community. I think this one also very important for us. And we can see here, so our university has the strategic implementation to achieving the SDGs, so strengthening the meaning of the research and community services. And we have the policy of our rector is SMART. The SMART is mean S is sustainable education for all, meaningful research for the M and community services. For the A is advancing innovation enterprising, and the R is responsive management, and T the topping up tangible and intangible resources utilization. So for this kind of the M and A in our part of our responsibility, so we would like also giving the people to strength and supporting achieving of the SDGs. So the student in our government, we have the decree of our Ministry of Education, Culture and Research and Technology. This the OBE outcome-based education is now is very important. So make the student is many learning experience beyond of the campus. So we have when we see here by the Nurunnabi et al. In 2018, we can see what the meaning of the OBE, the outcome-based education. Of course, we do the PDA plan, do, check, and action. And don't forget also improve after we do for the evaluation, what is our curriculum. This related with the challenges of the SDGs in the future and also for the mega trend after that. This is the important thing. So the OBE will be started not only all the whole curriculum, but also starting for the courses, the program, the faculty, and then after that in university. So the teaching and learning process also not only courses in the campus, but also learning process with the community. So learning outcome, learning activity, and learning assessment will be important to do for the OBE study. So for our university, then we do for the student, for the emancipated learning in community, we can do by research-based learning, we can do by case-based, project-based, evidence-based, and community-based learning. So for this kind of the experience, so students can involve in our matching fund research. So we have a matching fund research internally for collaborating with international partners, but our government also have matching fund with link with the industry or company or the stakeholder, and then we can teach our students to do the startup, how they can becoming emancipated and have the learning experience like entrepreneurship, and then making like a startup. So I have one example for our student that successfully now doing the startup and of course after they are graduated, they're still continuing, but now he's with the team is successfully to do that. And also our university now developing the name of teaching industry. This is like a science and techno park, but this more pilot plan program. So the teaching industry is the bridge between laboratory scale, pilot scale, and industrial scale. The teaching is the pilot scale project. So students can study there how they from the laboratory before the industry. So then we are also give the learning about in COVID. We are developing vaccine for COVID-19, and we successfully also do this by adaptive the hexa-helix collaboration scheme. So we know triple helix, penta, quadra, and hexa. So we successfully product. Now we have the vaccine of Inafat. This is for COVID-19 for our domestic demand in Indonesian people. So this is already got the emergency use authorization. And I think our university is the first university in Indonesia producing autonomously in our country for COVID-19 vaccine. And we collaborate with the biopharmaceutical industry of Biotis. So we learn about collaboration. So students learn about how to make a collaboration. We cannot do anything by ourselves. So we not compete one by one, but we collaborated. So to achieve the SDGs, we should collaborate with the community, like this kind of the hexahelix, our experience. We collaborate with the ministry and government. We collaborate with community like National Consortium of Vaccine Merah Putih, hospital community, and also society to do the clinical trial, preclinical trial, and also with the media, mass media, with the law, because we should also collaborate and giving the as a regulator, national regulator in Indonesia, also halal, because this already got the certificate of halal from the Majelis Ulama Indonesia, Halal Center in Indonesia, and also with WHO. So the law is important, and also academician, researcher, postgraduate student, and of course the industry. And don't forget our alumni, because the alumni will be around surrounding us in the environment of the stakeholder. So for the SDGs, our university also share for the SDGs desa or SDGs village. So the SDGs is not only in our city or district of any kind of this, but we are like mentioned by Professor Allam that Indonesia is archipelago country. So we have so many remote islands. We still have border island like Bintan with Singapore and Malaysia. We also have coastal area. So we have 3 pilot projects. We choose Madura Island as the remote island because near from the East Java. So I of course invite all of these speakers here from many kind of the country. Maybe we can do together how we can then encourage empowering the people in village to do to achieving SDGs, conservation, natural resources, and maintaining for the SDGs for the more environmentally eco-friendly environment. So we also choose the border island of Bintan Island and coastal area of the Banyuwangi. So we do the SDGs village to answering rural Indonesia to towards the global development goals, and we do by and with. So we together with the community. So the community will becoming our partner. So this is the one of this floating hospital that we have. This kind of the floating hospital is will achieving the remote area island in Indonesia to achieve like the SDGs number 1, number 2, number 3, also educational, inequality, green economy, blue economy, so many things because they have natural resources in marine area. Yeah. This is the floating hospital that we have. I think this is still only the floating hospital in Indonesia that we have from Universitas Erlangga. I hope that in the future, many universities in Indonesia also will have this kind of the floating hospital. This is part of the contribution of our alumni. This one is more in the foundation of such Satya Erlangga Tropic Hospital. It's been sponsored or sponsoring by our alumni with Universitas Erlangga and with the hospital in the East Java province. So this is the Madura Island. This is the remote island near Surabaya, near Madura. It's very close. We have bridge from Surabaya to Madura, but we have to use this floating hospital to achieving the 4 remote island like Gili Iang, Sapu Adi, Putran, and Ras. The important thing, this Gili Iang Island, yes, in the more in the north area. So Gili Iang, you know that this one still contains the oxygen. I think the biggest second oxygen in the world. So we should maintaining this kind of the oxygen. So then we try to give. We try to give this society in the Madura Island to map the oxygen. This one you can see here the student involved in this kind of the research. So students do the research together with the committee, do together with the supervisor of the lecturer, professor, researcher, and also the practitioner. So we can see here what they do, the student, and then mapping of the wind and also try to implementing the solar energy in this area to maintaining the oxygen. So we can see here the student then do the research to implementation of the solar energy in this area. And then also you can see here, this is the Faculty of Advanced Technology and Multidiscipline that we have in Universitas Erlangga, and also Faculty of Science and Technology that supported the environmental to what we call it, to waste, to the waste to the waste degradation by to be the composting, like and then not to burn it, the waste of the like from the plant or from any area of the Gili Iang. So we can maintaining to be the bio composting and then to do for the agriculture as the organic fertilizer or something like that. This is also due by Faculty of Science and Technology and also water sanitation. So why our university got the ranking in the impact ranking of the SDGs in time higher education in the rank of 101 to 200. And then we are also high score in water and sanitation. So I think, and also no poverty, and the other also in inequality, because last mentioned by Professor Allam that the women and also the men in our university is maybe around 60 compared to the 40. So 60% is the women also for our students. So and for the coastal area, so we are combating the poverty and hunger for sustainable agriculture. So we support the fishermen, our society in Banyuwangi in coastal area, how to improve the quality, making more good quality of the water of aquaculture for the shrimp, especially for the shrimp aquaculture, because this is very important. We are still difficult to export the shrimp harvesting because the society have the problem with the water quality. So we then supporting this society in Banyuwangi. So next September with the UI Green Metric, we will also conducting as a host for this kind of community development program in Banyuwangi with the Society of the Shrimp Fishermen Aquaculture. So we make a remote sensing. This is the area of marine station of Universitas Erlangga in coastal area of Banyuwangi in Indonesia. So we make like remote sensing to analyzing the quality of water. Water there like cyanobacteria, chlorophyll, and also maybe there are pathogen bacteria there. So we analyzing this by using the remote area. And we have also the teaching industry of glucosamine. What is the glucosamine? This is, we are converted from the waste of the shrimp, the shell of the shrimp because we have so many fishermen with the shrimp cultivation. So we then use the shell of this shrimp to convert it become glucosamine. You know, glucosamine is very expensive material for the pharmaceutical industry. So we have one teaching industry there. I think this is important for the circular economy, right, of the SDGs for our environment to make more healthy environment. So this is another for the green economy that we do also in border island of the Bintan. We do conservation in our botanical garden in Kalimantan. We have endemic plant of the ginger. It's very specific in our area of the Kalimantan that will be becoming a new capital of Indonesia. So this is our collection of so many bacteria that we can use. This one becoming like a biosurfactant or bioorganic fertilizer, and also developing enzyme, we call it exozyme, to do more in the green economic area, and also herbal medicine to the faculty of pharmacy. We have the herbal plant to be becoming a more traditional medicine in Indonesia. So we can see here, this is the one learning experience of students that doing the startup. So from the environment, what society needs, our help, our solution, our support, then our student developing the ones.
Yes, we can.
Menjadi penghasil sarang walet terbesar di dunia.
Yes, we can hear.
Sarang walet ini menjadi harta karun yang bernilai triliunan rupiah. Pemerintah saat ini berfokus pada optimalisasi potensi sarang walet Nusantara. Namun pada faktanya, kita menghadapi kendala yang tak ada habisnya.
Kita sebenarnya bisa memaksimalkan produksinya sampai ke 2.000 ton.
Sebanyak 1.800 ton yang diekspor semuanya berasal dari rumah walet yang belum diregistrasi.
70% mengasistensi atau melakukan pembinaan teknik kepada petani, baik koran maupun sarang burung walet.
Pemerintah Indonesia menghadapi tantangan serius untuk mengedukasi petani walet.
Jadi yang paling clear adalah tidak boleh ekspor material. Titik. Tujuannya apa? Nilai tambah petaninya akan lebih baik.
Banyak pihak egois dan mengekspor raw material. Hal tersebut membuat harga sarang walet menurun. Tiga fakta tersebut menjadi masalah: traceability, edukasi, dan social impact. Markas Walet berusaha memecahkan permasalahan tentang budidaya walet di Indonesia. Markas Walet akan hadir di tengah-tengah petani walet Indonesia. Kami telah mengadakan pelatihan budidaya untuk mengedukasi petani walet di Indonesia. Saat ini, ratusan petani walet binaan kami telah merasakan panen yang melimpah setelah bergabung dengan Markas Walet. Markas Walet telah memiliki manufaktur pencucian sarang walet yang telah memberdayakan lebih dari 40.000 rumah tangga sebagai pegawai aktif. Untuk mengintegrasikan komunitas petani walet yang kami bina dengan manufaktur pencucian sarang walet, Markas Walet berupaya menghadirkan solusi inovasi teknologi berupa aplikasi yang dapat meningkatkan nilai traceability. Melalui langkah strategis ini, kami sudah berhasil membantu produksi sarang walet dengan skala besar setiap tahunnya. Inovasi dan pencapaian ini membawa Markas Walet menjadi 100 startup terbaik menurut Kementerian Riset dan Pendidikan Tinggi. Kedepannya, kami akan berfokus pada pengembangan jaringan supply chains melalui aplikasi Markas Walet, serta menghadirkan inovasi teknologi dalam proses budidaya dan pencucian sarang walet. Mari bergabung bersama Markas Walet. Markas Walet, wujudkan mimpi petani walet Indonesia.
So this Markas Walet, the student that built the startup, Professor Mohammad, he and his team is graduated from natural sciences, from mathematics. So it's mean that we can empowering and also increasing and strengthening the learning experience of the student with the outcome-based education, with the society, with the so it's mean that can be also make them more available or employ them to the job market, or maybe they can create a new job market in the society. I think this is the one we can do for strengthening our graduate competency in the society when they are entering society, community, and also the stakeholder and also the job market. So Universitas Airlangga, we have the Global Research, Innovation, and Community Development Collaboration. We have two institutions or two centers for internationalization. The one is the Airlangga Global Engagement, and the other one is the World University Association for Community Development, that we often also invite Professor Allam to share his experience, his knowledge, and also his as a director of World Association for Sustainable Development. So the WACD is initiated by our rector, Professor Nasi. Now we have around 30 members of this kind of association. So we are more also do the community development within international area. So next August, we can do for the river of Kim Kim in Malaysia, in Johor Bahru, together with the UTM, together with the University of Malaysia, and also with the UN University of Malaya. So, and around of the Malaysian university member of WUSCT. I think we are also maintaining this kind of the environment in other university member countries. Thank you very much. I think this is what we I share with all of you, and I hope that this is will be a fruitful discussion and also collaboration with all the speakers and also all the participants in the future. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And I'm return back the time to Professor Allam.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor, and good day to everybody in different parts of the world. I definitely am glad to be part of this effort as usual. Alan and your team, well done. Having listened to the previous speakers, I will try not to bore you with the history and some of the, I would say, best practices by universities. Dr. Mohammad from Saudi Arabia and Dr. Nyoman, the previous speaker, excellent narratives of the great things you are doing. And as Mother Teresa and some others have said, if you cannot do great things, do small things in great ways. So what we see and what we hear from our colleagues is some of the great things that are happening out there and that need to be replicated and adapted. And I hope, Dr. Allam, in future conversations, we can dwell more on the how, H-O-W. How is Indonesia doing some of the great things they are doing? How is Saudi Arabia doing some of the great things they are doing? That will be very helpful. But let me start off by the context of my thoughts that I will share in the next few minutes. If you look at the call for proposals by the World Association for Sustainable Development, the first slide here, I took an excerpt from there. And then the SDG Fund Director. Now, what this context states very clearly is that universities have a critical role to play in SDG implementation. And there is nothing wrong with that. That's a very noble call. But there are so many questions that we as institutions of higher learning should be asking about this critical role that we are asked to play by the international community. And I will say with all admiration that the World Association for Sustainable Development is an example of university-based, university-oriented organizations that need to answer that question. If we have time to speak or chat with Allam about how he is doing what he's doing, I'm sure many of us would be very shocked that the universities are being asked to play a role for which they are not enabled. And I want you to keep that in mind. We are being asked to play a role for which we are not enabled. So we have to make the most of the opportunities we have in-house to do the things that we're doing. I believe Saudi Arabia, Indonesia are good examples of that, which means if we wait for the international community that charged us to play these roles, we will never get anything done. Now, that's a very critical point, and I share that with you as part of the, if you want to call it, frustration that I think universities face and must be discussed over time with the stakeholders. Now, moving right along, I'm going to be addressing very quickly 3 basic questions. Who are the stakeholders we are supposed to be collaborating with to implement the SDGs? What are some of the issues that universities face in developing this partnership and collaborations? And the third, what are some sustainable development opportunities now and in the future, right? So allow me to address these questions very, very briefly. And if anybody is interested in further conversation, we can do that off screen. You can get my contact from Dr. Allam. Now, who are the stakeholders? This analytical framework clusters, if you look at society, there are 4 clusters, groups of stakeholders based on the motives of those in any society. The 4 clusters, or the 4 sectors, are the public, what we call the public sector or the governmental sector. The second, the grassroots sector. The third is the corporate sector, and the last is the philanthropic sector. Now, these are equal partners because society is made up of people, and people belong to these clusters. Some of you wear many hats. You are a public servant by day, you are a business owner weekend, you are a volunteer for Parents Teachers Association at the weekend. So society is about people, but we have different mandates depending on time and place. Now, if you look at column 2 of this slide, the motive of each sector is clearly defined. Government is about protecting the public interest. That is not the business of anybody but government. And this goes back to, if you will, the 1648 Westphalia Treaty that established the sovereignty of states, and you can go as far back as 1215, the Magna Carta. Now, the point is the sovereignty of government to protect the public interest is that of government. The second sector, grassroots, you and me, innocent, patriotic citizens, our motive is self-preservation, to live and let live, work hard, obey the law, quality of life. The third sector, corporate sector, we know very well, profit making. And then, of course, the non-profit sector, advocacy of issues, advocacy of causes. And let's be very careful. Their role is not to serve society per se, because somebody who is advocating for the rights of women, somebody who is advocating for the rights of animals, somebody who is advocating for the rights of mosquitoes, each one has a cause. So in the long run, they may argue that their cause is to serve society, but for nonprofits, it's about advocacy for issues. Now, I have the constituency in the third column that each sector serves. And if you look at these constituencies, it's only the government that serves everybody. The grassroots, you serve yourself, your family. corporate sector, let's not make the mistake. The corporate sector, regardless of what we say about corporate social responsibility and all that, is about serving the stockholders, the investors. And then the philanthropies is about their issue groups. If you don't belong to their issue group, tough luck. So if you're not a member of, for example, Women Against unethical treatment of animals, then you literally do not belong to that constituency. And then, of course, the final column there shows the resources that each sector has to. What's the importance of this slide? Each sector brings something to the table, and we must be able to capitalize on those resources and assets in order to make everybody a productive part of society. And the SDGs, ladies and gentlemen, require that everybody plays their role responsibly. No matter how small their role may be, it's important to the collective effort of society. So you can't eliminate hunger if my uncle in the village sits back and says, no, I'm not going to go back to the land, I want to hold an office job, and he doesn't even have an education. So everybody has to be able to do their part responsibly. And what we're saying is that every sector has resources, and we have to be able to accentuate, highlight those resources in our conversation, in our partnerships, in our collaboration. This third slide very quickly. If you look at the third column, and I want you to pay attention to the third column, what are the expectations of universities? What expectations does society and the various stakeholders have of universities? And let me say this, based on these expectations, different sectors of society would either admire, work with, or respect universities. Very simply, the credibility of universities depends on how we perform or we meet this expectation. So let's take the corporate sector, for example, the profit-making sector. If you start talking about, if you start talking about advocacy and community outreach, it's not as important to stockholders and investors as advocacy and outreach would be for philanthropies. Now, let me also go back to the corporate sector. Eglinton, who came up with the triple bottom line framework of sustainability, people, profit, and society. Now, Eglinton came up with the triple bottom line, and the private sector embraces that, but we know very well, and I submit to you, that the contradictions and some of the, if you will, albatross of implementing sustainable development goals arise from the profit-making motive of the most powerful sector in society, which is the corporate sector. And I'll leave that at that. All right, now just quickly, so please pay attention to the, when you get hold of the slides, the last column there. Universities are respected, are considered credible depending on how we deliver the expectations of the various stakeholders. For government, if we are not providing quality education, if we are not engaging stakeholders, if we are not inventing technologies that can serve society, then we have no credibility with the public sector. Same thing with the corporate sector. Inventions, and you look at all this, the so-called next generation technologies, it's all about what the corporate sector can take to the market, sell, make a profit, and if you are lucky, they come back to your university with some research grant. If not, forget it. All right. Now, the essence of this slide is to, and this is the key takeaway here, the KTA for all of us on this platform. The last column with all the beautiful colors talk about opportunities for universities in this multi-directional partnership so that we can become more credible, we can become more valuable, and we can become more, if you will, critical agents of change. Because no matter what we do in terms of education, research, and service, if we do not see critical changes on the ground, then we are just marking time. And that's what the critical social theorists say. If research and education do not translate into solutions for everyday problems, then such research and education is of very little value. So the colors, literally, I want you to take this away as the things that we should pay attention to as university. The SDGs are many. We know that very well. They are controversial. We know that very well. In fact, as Petru said earlier, they are noble goals, but I strongly believe that one of the tragedies of SDGs is the issue of diction and lingo and terminologies, development, goals. I see that if we talk, for example, about principles of hunger elimination, rather than telling me a goal, and this is what some of my students always struggle with. I mean, who came up with this? And I strongly believe that from the 2030 agenda, universities need to be more involved in the discourse and the negotiations. And I know that's not going to be easy, given our very tight schedules and our very rigid and structured agenda, if you will. But we need to get more serious about engaging, and that's my conclusion very quickly. So please glance over this. This colorful column talks about the way forward for universities, and we need to take this very seriously. If not, we will continue to remain at the margin of some of the critical discussions and dialogues that set agenda, that allocate funds, and that determine the path of global development. Now, the issues that I identified in this and the next slide, these two slides, are divided into issues that are internal to universities and issues that are external to universities. I'm not going to go through all this, but let me just look at the internal issues, right? Internal issues, and many of these are drawn again from reflective interaction with my students who get very fascinated about sustainable development goals, and then boom, they discover, well, the results do not justify all the pandemonium and discussions and funding that they hear about in the world. So where are the results on the ground, given this very scary statistics that Dr. Mohammad shared with us earlier about hunger in the world, injustice in the world, oppression in the world? And as Obama said last week, we're talking about the 4 crew members who died on the 4 billionaires, but we're not talking about 700 who drowned in Greece, 700 immigrants who drowned in one day. Now, life is life, and all lives are important, but I think the conversation needs to be more balanced and equitable, and we need to show compassion in some of these conversations. Now, so if we look at some of the issues that are internal to universities, and Dr. Nyoman, you probably know better as a vice president for research, we have universities, departments quarreling over limited funds. In my university—
There are 5 minutes left, sir.
Thank you very much. In my university, departments and programs, knocking heads, and University of Abu Dhabi and University of Dubai don't talk. So these are issues that are internal to universities. External issues. Universities tend to take this neutral, objective position. The world is political. Let's face it. The world is political. And when existential issues and situations arise, objectivity and reason take a backseat to politics and subjectivity. Now, what am I saying? We need to be mindful when we go out there as universities. We should not be naive. We should not be simpletons. We should not be ninny hammers. We should go out there with very clear sense of what reality is and be ready to play hard ball, as they say. Here we have my conclusion. I just want you to pay attention to the yellow highlight in number 3. There is so much work to do. And I strongly believe that by the way, the framework you see here is one of the frameworks we developed at the University, Florida Atlantic University, when we were doing work with low-income communities about sustainability. And we discovered that sustainability, and Dr. Nyoman, Dr. Mohammad, you showed this very clearly, besides the triple bottom line, or the so-called triple E's of the Brundtland Commission, environment, economy, equity, if we don't have engagement of stakeholders, grassroots, if we don't have enlightenment, it's stated in every religion that I know, if you don't know where you're going, you'll be lost. Vision, enlightenment. So we came up with the so-called sustainability pentagon, which I have presented at different forums, as an option for the triple bottom line. So the 3 E's of Brundtland and Ecklinton, we argue for sustainability pentagon, which simply adds enlightenment and engagement to the other 3 E's. So final comment, universities need to seriously re-examine their strategies and methods of partnership and engagement with the other stakeholders. We cannot sit back and continue to play this neutral and think that it's all about objectivity, and the real world calls for serious activism, research that gets to the heart of problems at the grassroots and beyond the grassroots level. And I think, again, some of our colleagues who spoke earlier demonstrate that we can do better. We can go out there and provide education, research, and services that make a difference in the lives of everyday folks. Thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Marwa. Thank you so much. And thank you, Professor Allam, for organizing this amazing conference and the timely topic. And I really enjoyed the presentation from the early morning, and I learned a lot from the presentation. It gave me insights, especially from the chemistry backgrounds. So thank you for having this opportunity and having me with you. So this is already a published paper, dear friends, here, where I did it with one of my colleagues at the University of Maazzem University. And we are focusing on the role of education and the moderator factor here was the digitalizations and health, and how they are highly integrated together. So maybe Professor Jerry Kolo will start by saying the Pentagon and the partnership importance. So I name it the triangular pillars for the SDGs in order to accelerate achieving the SDGs. So the 3 pillars here is affecting the growth of countries. And here we have an evidence from a case study from the GCC countries, the Gulf countries, and the MENA region, the 4 selected countries. So the paper here was attracting our attention, and our hypothesis and our research questions was built on, as we strive towards sustainable future, the crucial role of education is driving digitalization and improving health. So in order to achieve this, we need to have a better access to digitalization. So we will see here that our question is the impact of digitalization on the relation between education and health. And here we usually are inspired by the trade-off between the 2 pillars, is it growth or development, which is first. So I believe it's political answers. The political answers come to choose either it starts with the economic growth or by development. So here we try to examine the relation between the 3 triangular factors of our variables here. So we try to use moderator factors such as educational and health outcomes, in addition to the health outcomes in the terms of life expectancy and how they are going to affect the economic growth. In order that the objectives here, it is motivated to provide the policymaker with a certain recommendation. So since education is trying to promote sustainable development, is if we have educated people and if we have a healthy people, and maybe since I'm coming from an academic background, we usually try to relate between the 3 pillars and how the development sustainable development literate citizen is very important. So we need to educate people more in order to avoid the illiteracy that we are facing in many developing countries. Also, we try to integrate the sustainable development in our university. We integrate all the SDGs in our university curriculum in order to provide across the different disciplines between different courses in order to integrate, and because we cannot apply the same curricula that we are using before because it is not highly related to the timely manner we have. So we started by making an overview and comparison between the school enrollments in different regions, and we will see that the MENA region, it is still behind and back in the school enrollment, in addition to the life expectancy as well. So we see also that the MENA region is fairly above the average statistics for the world data, while the other European countries or OECD, we are still far away from them. So we are structuring a simple model to check the role of school enrollment and how the school enrollment differ and how they are highly affected by the independent variable which we use, the internet and the fixed lines and the GDP growth rate, and as well using the internet. And we split our data to two groups of countries in order to see if these variables in the forms of digitalization and health factors is going to affect the level of school enrollment and education or not. So the results of the data we apply in econometric analysis, and this econometric analysis depend on using ARDL model. The paper is published online if you want to look for the statistics, but I'm just giving you an insights concerning what we find in our study. So this study found that the using internet was significant, and it is having a positive effect of 10%, as we named for the first group. And the first group, as we have seen before, it is representing the United Arab Emirates, and the second group is representing the GCC group of the first group is composed of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Qatar, and Oman. And the second group is representing Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Jordan, and Morocco only for our study. So the result shows that for the first group of the GCC countries, the internet was significant and have a positive effect, while on the other side, the life expectancy and the growth rate was significant only in the second group. So this means that the internet was not very efficient that much. Still, the fixed lines or the infrastructure of the technology and the innovation that we still have in the MENA region, it's lagged behind, so it was not significant that much here. So when we go for the internet, it was helping the first group countries, which is the GCC, in order to excel and help in the growth, and it is facilitating them. So the internet here and the using the digitalization will accelerate the growth that they are looking for. And as well, we see that it will have a positive effect in the long terms for the other variables. While for the life expectancy and the GDP growth were significant in the second group for the MENA region. So life expectancy, when it is increasing, so it's have a positive effect on the school enrollment. When there is a positive economic growth, so that this will affect the school enrollment and education. So we take it from a different perspective, how the health is very, very, very important. And this is what inspired us, that the quality and the literacy of education and health related to how people can handle whatsoever health crisis or health challenges, especially after the COVID-19. Other results show that in the first group, the subscribers was found to be insignificant. The internet was significant, but the fixed line was not efficient and significant, while life expectancy was significant in the second group. So this is representing what is positive and what was significant and what was not significant. But concerning the relations, we dig deeper and to find the relations is positive or negative. We find that the school enrollment and using and the relation with the internet was having a negative relation, to the two variables here. While in the group 2, the negative relation was evident in several variables. It's very lagged. We still lagged behind. We still needed to more infrastructure. We still needed to many initiatives. It is political factors, that judicial factors. After we did these studies and got inspired by the results that we have got, and all the data, all the details in the literature and everything, you can find it in the paper which is published online. we find that investing in education infrastructure, giving education and infrastructure, quality of the cells and the boards and the subscribers will help us. And it was having a positive effect on the GCC countries. Sorry. In addition, addressing the population growth, the study found that the population have a negative pressure on the education. So whenever we have a high population, numbers of people, this is lagged and having a negative impact on the quality of education. People cannot afford it, especially after the increasing of the cost of having this education in many countries. In addition to the self-subscribers, in the short run, in both the Gulf countries and the MENA regions, it was negatively in the short terms. The second thing that attract our attention is how we can promote the digitalization, because the study showed that education has a positive effect on fixed broadband subscribers in the GCC, which is the importance of digitalization, and it's how it's affected the quality of education, and it's affecting improving the access to digital service. Furthermore, when we go for the health sectors, we still find that there is still more in need for the education and the positive impact of the life expectancy in the long run in the GCC countries and the MENA region. So we find that we're still looking for digital health solutions, digital health education, digital awareness for the health factors. For the contribution of education to digital and health, it is very important. It is a multi-faceted factors, and it's crucial for the SDGs. So we conclude that digital health solution and educating people is become more important, and the role of internet and digitalizations and the current factors can be one of the moderator factors that can help achieving one of the SDGs if there is enough funds and there is one of the priorities we see. We see also that from our recommendation encourage the local inventions and domestic automation technology, because this will help in increasing the labor productivity. Improve the governance, the quality of the governance to attract the technology and investment, and as well to develop the skill-based acceptance systems in order to implement effective policies. So we need trained people in the Arab region to mitigate the impact of the gap that we are still facing between the countries across the globe, because we still have inequality in enhancing the employment and the inclusion and reaching inclusion growth. Two other recommendations we propose that the innovative systems promote the transition is very important in order to transfer the informal to the formal. We are in need to set more policies, enhancing more policies to transfer many informal activities in education and other places to become formal in order to be aligned, in order to help in having a digital economy and achieving the partnership between the governments and other sectors. Finally, the crucial part that comes and it's need a huge emphasis on is the cybersecurity, because based on protecting the public information and avoiding the cyber crimes and all these strategies will help the countries to go for digitalization, because they are still having in their mindset that attacking and cyber attacks will destroy the system. So they still don't want to go to banks, so they don't want to use internet. They are still having this conceptual blocks that affect their accessibility to digitalization. Thank you so much.
I have slightly modified the topic, which I had, earlier submitted. And the topic for today, which I've selected, is why corporate governance and sustainability, these are becoming inseparable. So my agenda for today's talk is, I'll be talking in brief about concept of corporate governance first, then I'll be talking about the concept of sustainability, and finally, I'll be just focusing on why corporate governance and sustainability, they are becoming inseparable, and what is the need for embedding sustainability culture in corporate entities. I would also like to share with all those who are present here that I'm coming out with a book this year, and this book is on corporate governance and sustainability. I'll be showing you the cover page in the last slides, but I will just present the gist in the beginning, and later on I'll be sharing the cover page and the blurb of the book with all those who are present here. Friends, before I start with the concept of corporate governance, I would just like to give the background about governance and economic growth and how these are important. As all of you must be knowing that economists, they have widely acknowledged that institutions do matter, and the quality of institutions and economic performance, these are very closely related. And this has been acknowledged by Adam Smith in 1776, later on Douglas North, Hall and Jones, and as Moglu, they have written a lot on governance and economic growth, how closely they are related. And corporate governance, it definitely, it matters. It matters because of the reason that corporate entities or firms, these are one of the entities after consumers, households and government, which are responsible for production and consumption of, carrying out in an economy. Now, if these corporate entities, these are well governed, they are having all the potential to influence overall growth in the country, because corporate governance influences economic growth through several channels. And there is a lot of literature available on this. It shows that it impacts cost. If the entities, they can impact overall cost of production, that is cost of capital. They can impact the efficiency in an economy through returns on equity. And they play a very important role in boosting the confidence of the investors in the economic setup. So these are, the three channels through which corporate corporate entities, they can influence overall economic growth in the country. Now, the question is, why at all I'm talking about corporate governance and sustainability today, and what are the reasons that, there is a lot of interest in corporate governance these days. In the last decade of the 20th century, there were many corporate frauds and accounting scandals, which led to bankruptcies, which led to, lawsuits. This heightened the importance of corporate governance. And there is now a growing realization that we require all around the globe good governed or well-governed corporate entities. And when we say corporate governance, the meaning thereby is the mechanisms. These are the rules, processes, procedures, policies, etc., by which businesses and organizations are directed and controlled. And when I say good governed corporate entities, we can identify them through 4 or 5 principles, or maybe you can say 6 principles. And these are known as draft, that how they have been disclosing the information, financial information, financial ratios, information regarding financial ratios or non-financial information they have been disclosing to the stakeholders, how responsible they are, how accountable they feel they are, not only to the organization but to the society as a whole, how fair they are in their dealing, and how transparent they are in disclosing the information to one and all. So these are the 6 key elements of good governance and corporate governance identified by IFC. I would also like to point out that if we look at the businesses all around the globe, 2/3 of businesses worldwide, these are owned and managed by families. And if I talk about India, 80% of our GDP is contributed by family businesses. So these families, these are the promoters of the companies, but they are not able to run the companies because, they don't have that skills or they don't have that vision. So they have to rely upon the board of directors, which is a collective body, which is, elected, which comprises of elective directors, and decision is being controlled by this board of directors. So far as decision management is concerned regarding, like initiation of a proposal or implementation, that lies with the management. And managements, they are the agents of the principals. And herein, arises the chances that management may expropriate certain benefits from the shareholders, and there arise, agency costs. And one of the ways to minimize these agency costs is by ensuring that entities, they follow the principles, the procedures, and the processes properly. I would also like to mention that if board of directors, they are having the vision, they are having the skills, and they believe in the principle of graft, which I just mentioned. And if these principles are being shared with managers and the employees, I think the boards will be very competitive and they will help in achieving the sustainability agenda also. Therefore, it is very, very important that we have to set a tone of integrated at the top. Coming now to the concept of sustainability, as all of you know, one of my colleagues from some other university prior to me, he just mentioned about Brundtland Commission report of 1987, where the concept of sustainable development was used for the first time in the report on common future, which implies that development has to be done in such a way that it not only meets the needs of the present generation, but it also helps helps to save the resources for the future generation also. And all of you are aware of this 2030 agenda of United Nations, wherein 17 sustainability development goals have been set up. And it is very, very important that corporate entities world over, they must adopt these 3 norms, which are termed as environment, social, and governance norms. That entities world over, including India, they should understand that it is not only the financial ratios which are important, it is very, very important that they should be held accountable for the resources which they have been using, which are available freely to one and all, and the damage which they have been doing to the society as well as to the communities, or the damage which they have been causing to the climate change. So it is not only the financial reporting which is important, it is very, very important that non-financial reporting has to be done in a proper manner, which is also termed as sustainability reporting. Sustainability reporting means they must understand that their responsibility of using the societal resources, the impact of their actions on the environment, and they should be properly captured, and it should be properly get reflected in their decision-making processes through their different strategies which they opt for. So far as India is concerned, for the past 3 decades, we have been embarking on this journey to bring about reforms in the corporate governance regime. And I feel that from 2009 onwards, the pace for these changes, for the introduction of this, corporate governance reforms, it has picked up very fast. And it happened especially after the corporate scandal of 2008, which is known as Satyam scandal or Satyam fiasco, which took place in the country. And 2009, there were voluntary guidelines on corporate social responsibility which were issued. And after that, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, they came out in 2011 with national voluntary guidelines on environment, social, and governance norms. And in 2012, there are 100 listed companies by market cap which have been, it was made mandatory for them that they have to non-financial reporting or sustainability reporting, they will have to follow. Then in 2015, the number of companies which are supposed to adhere to this NFR, it has been raised to 500, and 21-22, it has been raised to 1,000. And the conditions, the rules, they are becoming more and more stringent. And 2020, these national guidelines for responsible business conduct, these have been released by MCA, and these are aligning with the UN guiding principles on businesses and human rights. Now, what is more important is that if these guidelines are to be implemented, it is the leadership which is very, very important. And this leadership has to come from the board of directors. As I mentioned earlier, that if board of directors comprises of those directors which have vision, which are skilled, which are having, expertise, which are having future vision, then the things will be much, much more easier. And the qualities which have been, defined by Professor Vaini Wieser from Cambridge, he says that these sustainable leaders, they are inclusive in nature. They are more innovative, they are courageous, they are strategic, they are caring, and they are systematic also. And if such sustainable leaders are available, then who are sustainable, sustainability conscious also, and who are ready to, spread sustainability education also, then sustainability performance arrangement, it becomes very easy. because then the role of the companies will be to identify the metrics through which their non-financial performance will be judged. They will have to, decide how the data will be, collected, how it will be processed, how it will be analyzed, and how it will be reported annually along with the financial ratios. And then they will have to integrate it with the business planning and reporting. And as I mentioned earlier, that integrating environment, social and governance factors in the investment processes and business decision making, it is a must in the wider interest of the society and all the stakeholders. And there are many benefits of sustainability or regeneration. Again, I've been using the words of Wayne Weiser from Cambridge. He says that he has been termed by him. So instead of sustainability, he has been saying regeneration, regenerative leaders we have to have, because if such leaders are there, they can help us to, get several benefits from the businesses. There will be revenues, there will be higher returns. Focus will be on research and development. It will be on regulations, at the same time on research efficiency, and it will help in making the firms, the entities more stable, more resilient, and more sustainable. And that is what we are all looking out for, that not only the corporate entities should be well governed, but they should be ready to embed that sustainability culture in their organizations through different strategies. Because as I mentioned earlier also, that there are benefits of integrating corporate governance and sustainability, because this can help in maximizing the positive contribution of an entity to society. It can help in improving the relationship of an entity with different stakeholders, and it can also help in creation of more value in the long run by identifying opportunities and mitigating sustainability risks. So the point which I want to highlight is, it is sustainability consciousness, sustainability, education, sustainability, metrics, sustainability reporting, and which is very important on the part of the directors or the people who are at the helm of, managing the companies. It is very, very important if we want that corporate governance, it should converge with sustainability. I would like to bring to your attention I'm coming out with a book. The title of my book is Looking at and Beyond Corporate Governance in India, A Journey of 3 Decades of Reforms, Palgrave Macmillan and Springer Nature, Singapore. It is, coming out with the book in December 2023. And this book I have, jointly written with one of my colleagues, and we have tried to answer the questions, several questions in this book. For example, what does corporate governance imply? What channels affect corporate governance? What are the theories governing corporate governance? How does corporate governance landscape of India look like after 3 decades of reforms? How does corporate governance impact firm performance in India? And does corporate governance enhance economic growth in India? If yes, then how? And is there any linkage between foreign investment and corporate governance in the Indian context? Does foreign investors matter for corporate governance and economic growth in India? So on and so forth. And in every chapter, empirical exercise has been, carried out by taking data from different sources and by, analyzing the data, making use of different statistical tools. So I will stop here. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thanks for the nice introduction. My name is Ahmed Said. I'm assistant professor at Queen Mary University of London. And today I'm going to talk to you about AI and edge technologies for fostering SDGs. So I'm going to highlight a recent paper that published in Nature Communications about AI's role in SDGs. And it looked into the impact of AI, the positive and the negative impact over all the 17 goals and all the 169 targets, and try to look into what AI can enable or can foster and what it can inhibit or make negative impact. So it found that AI can be enabler for, as reported in this study, it can be enabler for 134 targets, and it can be inhibitor for 56 targets among all the 169. So mainly they find that AI is enabler via technological improvements, which allow us to overcome many limitations in these targets. And they try to categorize and classify these targets into general areas, such as their impact on society, economy, and environment. So first, on the society part, they found that AI can have a positive impact by supporting the provision of food, health system, water, and energy in smart cities and smart grids and electric vehicles and smart appliances. However, AI can have a negative impact because normally it's usually these systems are mainly accessible to the wealthy people, and this can create several or issues with inequalities, bias, and in some cases hate or biasing citizens, basically, such as in some countries they use citizen score to control the behavior or to reward good and bad behavior, which is driven by AI systems, which can be in some cases problematic. So they looked into also its impact on economy, and they found that it has a positive, of course, impact, where AI-enabled technologies are usually associated with increased productivity and can help us with many, reducing or solving many sources of inequality and conflict. However, this requires some proper AI systems that can ensure unbiased systems. For example, AI is used for job hiring or going through CVs or people's application, and for this case we need this to be unbiased. So the problem now, it still have a negative impact on economy, where in some cases, as AI, if it is trained on biased data, it will become biased as well. So that's going to be a problematic, leading to some inequalities, especially between inter and intra nations. And also it can lead to many political polarization that can impact actually eventually the economy. So that is the impact on economy. And there is also, of course, the impact on environment. So the positive side of AI is that it could analyze large-scale data sets. It's designed to, consume data and generate, predictions and insights, which can be useful for developing joint actions for, environment preservation. Like, for example, detecting oil spills, climate simulation, energy efficient systems. All of this can be developed via AI solutions. The problem is with the impact of AI itself is that training AI or ML models, especially the large ones, consume high compute and energy, and by themselves they have significant, carbon footprint and emissions. So, and also the problem with access to AI information system or ecosystems that rely on AI may drive over exploitation of resources. So these are the issues with AI for the environment. Now I'm gonna go through some of the challenges and the potential solutions, and I'll present next after this what we are doing in our lab or my group to solve some of these issues. So one of the challenges for AI is the lack of real and timely datasets. Normally, most of the experiments run in research are run in controlled lab environments or based on unrealistic data sets or synthetic data or just a prototype. And this may not reflect on the real environment. So the solution to this, we can think of relying on distributed real user IoT data that exists on the edge and in the wild. So, and this makes the system more reliable and more realistic. The second issue is how to democratize the computation, because most of AI applications are monopolized by big tech companies who own all the computational power that can, process and train data on these systems. So we need to shift some of the these methods or algorithms to a decentralized method to be able to, democratize computation and not keep them with the big tech companies. Another issue is, as we said, the energy and carbon footprint of AI. As we said, training them is quite resource and energy consuming, resulting in very high emissions. So we need to find energy-aware AI methods that can better utilize the resources and reduce their energy consumptions. The last issue is AI safety and robustness, and this is a very big issue. So as we said, AI models can be naturally biased due to the heterogeneity in the data and the resources, or in some cases, there can be malicious actors in the system that try to bias the AI model if we are relying on global data or decentralized data. Also, we need to solve this, we need methods that are robust to this heterogeneity and adversaries as well. So in my lab or group, it's called the Scalable Adaptive Yet Distributed Systems Group, which is based in Queen Mary, University of London. We look into issues related to how to decentralize AI and make them efficient. So our finding is that now, most of the data actually now lives at the edge. We have our mobile devices, smart home systems, electrical vehicle, autonomous vehicles as well. And all these systems are constantly generating data. So most of the data now is generated on the edge rather than being on the servers in the cloud or at the big companies. So, and mainly we know that the data enables the products and the smart models that is used within these products. And by the recent advancement in hardware and also the privacy restrictions that have been introduced by GDPR recently, that make us to think about solution that, moving computation from the cloud or the systems developed by big tech to move them to the edge. And this is enabled now by, devices becoming more capable, our own devices becoming more capable, and also the privacy restrictions have forced us to do this. Also, there are other benefits to do moving from the cloud to edge, which is, improve the latency and all the solutions can work offline. It's better for energy and battery lifetime, and also it gives us privacy advantages. So that's why, many distributed machine learning systems have emerged recently. And one of these systems is called federated learning. And actually, federated learning is quite popular now that it has been used in many scenarios and domains. It's being used in education systems, healthcare, banking, and economy, and transport. And the idea is that we have organizations or entities that each own the data, and they want to collaboratively train a global model for making, solving a certain task. Maybe it can be voice recognition or next word prediction or whatever it is. So the idea is that we want to collaborate using our own data without moving our data. So this is the use cases of federated learning, and also big tech companies are using this, and we're the leading users of federated learning, such as Google is using it for next word prediction on their Google keyboard. Apple uses it for Siri for the voice recognition task, and Microsoft, because it's an infrastructure company, they deployed FL platform that can be used as a service. So moving on, our research, goal is to develop also federated learning frameworks. And one of the goals we were trying to aim for is democratizing the computation. And since, as we know, we have various, devices with significant different, computational power from low-end to high-end devices, the problem is when they participate, some of them may not be able to finish their training and may not be able to contribute. So we have used some compression techniques to basically reduce the model size and basically allow them to, participate in the training. And this work has been published in EuroMLSys. Another work that we looked into how to, make the system more energy efficient by looking at the energy consumption on these mobile devices and how to, basically select them in an energy-aware manner so that we select the devices that have low energy impact. And this is also a work that have been published in Mobicon. Another work we have been doing is combating adversaries or the malicious, clients in the system, because some of them, they may try to, bias the model toward certain goals that is not the target task, and that can be problematic. So we investigated some techniques related to curriculum learning. It's an emerging technique in machine learning that relies on training the model based on easy samples first, then introducing the harder ones at later stages. We use some branch in this curriculum learning to basically detect who is malicious and who is not, and this is showed very good results so far. For most of the work I have, you can check my Google Scholar by scanning this barcode and looking at our recent paper. And this is mainly my focus in my group. And we have also now we have been looking into digital twins. It's a new technology that have been emerging recently, and we were looking into how to use this for the Sustainable Development Goals. And at Queen Mary, we have been establishing now a lab that is going to be released soon. It's a multidisciplinary research lab. It's called DT for SDG. And the lab aims to bring together a team to research innovative digital twin solutions for assuring sustainable development goals. And the lab consists of multidisciplinary experts in digital technology, social science, and other domains. And also we have subject matter experts that are guiding or acting as a steering committee in the lab. So the idea of digital twin approach is that we have all these technologies that are in use. We have cloud intelligence, we have now edge intelligence, we have IoT and connected sensors and actuators. So the idea is to create a digital twin or a virtual replica of the real world system and try to look into how we can develop new solutions and experiment with them before deploying them in practice. So the digital twin is an exact replica that exists in the virtual world. And by experimenting in a digital twin, we can create innovative solutions that can be deployed in our smart cities of the future. And there is also, we rely on IoT sensing data that exists in the wild for the digitization of this digital twin. So that's the main idea of the lab, and the lab actually consists of a multidisciplinary approach. As we see, the lab consists of people from science engineering, medical and dentistry, and human science and social science as well. So the lab will look into Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, social science, energy, transport, and environment and climate. And we'll try to find a solution, integrate a solution for all of these problems within this lab. So the lab experts, as we can see here, consist of technology experts, and I'm a member of the lab focusing on cloud systems and cloud and edge systems as well. And it consists of many experts led by Dr. Mona Jaber at Queen Mary University of London. And we have also domain experts in energy and future mobility and transportation. We have also supporting renowned academics like an AI expert, digital health, and human geography as well. So I'll finish by some examples of the projects led by the members of the lab. We have these projects like service treatments for next generation quiet aerofoils and improving the robustness of urban electricity networks. Also another project aiming at decreasing jet installation noise. And there is another project using machine learning for water quality prediction. And another project is about occupancy enhanced smart cities. And the recent project by Dr. Mona, which is distributed acoustic centers for modeling active travel in the smart cities. So by this, I will finish my presentation, and thank you for having me.
Okay, really, thanks a lot, really, for all our great speakers. Really, they make the job for me more easier to collaborate, because they introduce a lot of things which and they clarify a lot of the item which I want to talk about it. But really, I will focus more on the SDG number 4, which is the quality of the education and how we will handle with the AI technology. Really, before we discuss about that, we have, it is not the only really AI which is technology, which now it's coming, and also it will affect a lot of things. As you see in the report, there is a lot of the discussion about the AI in the education. When we are discussing about that, for example, for these 2 weeks, I read about 12 reports and which is related to the AI in the education. I don't know. I want really to compare the technology progress in the health field, since I'm a health administrator. Administration, and also the technology progress in the education field. Really, in the health field, really, we have really, and even we are publishing a lot of research and publication about the possible technology it's coming in the future and how we can utilize this one in the health field. And even we have the hypothesis and scenarios which is ready for this technology to be utilized and to optimize the usefulness of this technology. I don't know how is the situation if we compare that to the education. Since we are discussing about the AI, we are discussing as something will change. It will change a lot of things in the education process and also in the education and the quality of the education as well. Sure about that, but it is not only the one. It is really the beginning of a new era of a technology which for this coming 5 years or 7 years, I think it will be changed dramatically for a lot of things. We have already the biocomputing, and also we have the quantum computing. It's coming now, and how we are preparing ourselves for all these things which will affect the economy, will affect the whole processes in the community, and will affect also the economy and all the pillars in the development or in the world of development also will be affected. That means we should also rethink about the SDGs, and also we should think about the goals and how it will be measures. This one is an introduction. I don't really want to go through a lot of the things, but Alhamdulillah, it is already done by our colleague how it is and what is the effect of the SDG. I will go directly to the teaching process, teaching and learning process, which is the education and how it will be affected by the AI, and what we can do on this on that to measure the quality of that. And inshallah, I will promise it will be. I will not inshallah exceed 10 minutes. So this is the. I will go further for the immediately the what is the current real situation. In the teach, this is we are discussing about the learning and teaching and preparing the what will be the reflection of the technology on that. The assessment as well. It will be very effective. AI building the best practice. This is some of the practice which can be enhanced in the teaching and education process. The AI research and development, we talk about it a lot, really, alhamdulillah, and we cover already a lot of these. This is some of the study, and during the pandemic also, it's the digitalization. It's coming up, and also the economy. They are also investing a lot of all the countries. They are investing a lot of money about that. The current research, it is the fast development of the AI needs to be supported, necessary, regulated insight and oversight for the a lot. Study shows this is the how the digitalization was increased in the pandemic COVID-19. More, please. Next. Yes. Also, next. Yes, please, next. Yes, this is the one, which is the fast development of the AI and needs to be supported by the necessary regulated and reported potential. The impact of the AI indicate both positive and negative impact, which already Prof. Dr. Ahmed already discussed about it. Can next, please? Yes. This is some of the strength in the AI, how we can use it in for the teaching purpose, and also the next, please, for the student as well. We can also move to the other. Yes, please. Yes, this is how we next, please. This is how some of the countries already affected and also invest in the AI. Next, please. And what will be the progress of the economic when we are adapting the AI? The quality of education. This is the most important, which we want really to focus on. We can next, please. The other one. Yes. The quality. Yes. What I want to say really, it is a sequence of changes will be repeated. This is the most important is when we are all this technology will be adapted. The AI, the other also technology will affect also the economy. The economy also will affect when we have the industrial relationship with the university also will be. This one will affect our also education. Specifically, the higher education will be affected also by this movement together, and even the shape of the education will be changed dramatically and will be changed a lot, even on the outcome level, as well as in the technology level for the teaching, as well as for the learning process. So there is a lot of changes will be coming during this coming 5 years. Especially with this technology, we want really also to think about the learning and education model, how it is handling for all these things, and how we can use the right dimension, which can be measured and can be influenced and enriched in the education itself. Accordingly, the quality of the teaching will be also changed, and the quality dimension in this area will be also changed. The quality of the learning process and the self-learning of the students as well will be changed. And even now, for example, we have a good example in Saudi Arabia, and alhamdulillah, Prof. Dr. Mohammad Nurunnabi already talked about the Saudi Arabia as really one of the best practice in for achieving the SDGs. We have already the ranking of the Saudi ranking of the university. All the SDGs, it's embedded in the criteria and for the ranking in the university, and all the university is supported and requested to act for this really for these SDGs, and many you will find many examples in the one of them is one of the best really is Prince Sultan University. They present their really experience on this one, and also the other university, they are requesting to be similar to that, and they should implement all these things. We have already another example in the Al-Ma'rifa University in Riyadh. We have we use really all the SDGs as a system thinking model for our curriculum, and also for our strategic, as well as for our outcome assessment. So we use all of them. Even each activity within the university, it should be flagged by the SDGs, which is which is supported this SDGs. So all the activities and even our courses as well, we know exactly each courses can serve the 1 or 2 or 3 SDGs of our university, and the ranking of the university, the Saudi ranking of the university is one of the best practice. Really, it is already now started, and already all the SDGs is embedded there. As a conclusion, can we go to the next, please, Doctor? Yes. This is for the quality. It is the same. Next for that as well. We can go to the conclusion directly, Doctor. No problem. Yes, this is the conclusion. In order to justify AI rule and all other really technology, it is not only the AI. There is a lot of technology coming now, and there is a lot of dramatic really changes in the economy, and all it will be it will be affected in the education. We need to unveil the data and relationship between the AI and SDG in an automated manner. We really reach now to, alhamdulillah, we reach now to have a computerized dashboard for all our quality. Since we reached to this one, now we will change it again to serve the SDGs and the other really strategic for 2030 vision in Saudi Arabia. Unless we invest more in AI that is context sensitive, quite likely that AI will break and fail to achieve the quality of education. Still, really, the shape and how we can use the safe manner and the wisdom manner of the AI. We don't have really such scenarios like what I am talking about in the health. We don't have really such scenarios and hypotheses, and we are testing this one, and we all agree that this is the best or the wisdom way to use the AI technology and the other in the education, and to measure also the quality. There is a lot of really benefit, but also there is an embedded risk. We should take care about it. Thanks a lot, really.
Conscious of time. So the talk today will be talking about the AI in general, which we have been talking about for the last couple of sessions, and some other examples. They call them disruptive technologies, as Dr. Nasrallah mentioned. It's not just only AI, there are many technologies that we are using at the moment. So all of them will collaboratively push toward changing our future as they are changing our current situation. And then we are particularly looking after sustainable quality education. And that's why we are all here. So quick agenda here, we will talk about the sustainable education, what is that? And then we'll move to disruptive technology and AI. And then later on, we'll introduce our own framework that we claim that this framework will land up at the sustainable education framework or systems. So what is sustainability? Sustainability, we've been, which is the title of this conference, we've been talking about this concept for a long time now. The easiest way to refer to sustainability by talking about the detailed level is just referring to the SDG that we are all aware of. So SDG have 17 overall big ultimate goal, some of them related to the poverty, some of them related to the equality, life in the water, etc. So under this subject, we can mention many of them. I'm going to focus on the 4th SDG, which is related to the education. Why are we focusing on that? Because we do believe, and I personally believe, in the importance of education in changing the future of our generations and changing the future of the whole world. Okay. Now, education cannot be handled or considered as a separate part from other SDGs. And this is why, for example, if you improve the education of the current generation, the equality will improve. That people will be able to, which is again, goal number 5. If we also equip our current student with large number of skills, then they will be able to get a decent work environment, and they'll be able to produce a good economy for their own families and their own societies as well. So there are no clear-cut answer or clear-cut lines between these SDG in many cases, but we are going to do our best to focus on the education for the interest of this presentation. So education-wise, according to SDG, we're talking about a few things that we need to highlight here. So the sustainability increase the number of youth and adults who should be able to practice and have and own technical, vocational, and employment skills, okay? And that should lead to really good potential for them to go for a good job, or even to be a good entrepreneur and change the world of the current situation to be a better world, okay? So this is number 1. The other one, which is again from the sustainability, is eliminate the gender disparities and encourage people to come to the board here with no differences between people. We're all here knowledgeable, expert. We need to contribute to help our society, regardless of the gender disparities that we have. And also at the same time, allow people with some kind of disabilities to contribute to the society. And I'm aware of many movements across the world, in even Middle East or outside Middle East, Europe, is trying to push more towards, achieving and being fair for example, people with disability in work environment. And I can see this in some achievements. Some of them I've just read about this last week about in Saudi Arabia, they call them Ashab al-Himam, which is encouraging people to contribute to the society regardless the situation, the physical situation that you have. 4.7 refer to the learner that we are always aiming to equip them with knowledge and skill to promote even the sustainable development concepts. So the 17 SDGs, they are very important. They are all necessary, but in my view, maybe in a decade, possibly the number of 17 SDGs will definitely change. The priority will change because we are making good progress in that direction. So we have to adapt and make ourselves, ready to not just only to achieve the goal, but also go beyond that whenever possible. And the last one, which is part of this education overall SDG, is being inclusive when we teach our student, when we teach our, and I stop call about the word student, I may use the word learner, and at some point we'll use the word customer. Why customer? Because we do deliver continuous development courses where we offer also somehow lifelong learning. When I get a job, I receive my salary, I do my job, and on the side, I'm doing also some development activity to learn more and also to be aware of the last development that I could see in any environment. So, which means this is a learning journey for me. So I am, as a customer now, I learn a lot from the environment. I learn a lot from what we call the institutional behavior, institutional knowledge. Then I do believe that I need to also receive some good knowledge from that outcome while I'm doing my job, okay? And this is what we call win-win situation. I am winning because I'm increasing, developing my skill. The institution that I work for is also winning and also developing their potential to grow and improve their position in the market. Okay, where we are now, let's talk about two things that I would like to highlight in the UK context, but it can be applied in other contexts. So I will start with what we call global aspect and then local aspects. So global aspect, which I have highlighted here on the left of my screen. If you look at this one, these are the SDG, we call them SDG trackers. These SDG trackers try to collect data from different countries, from different continents, different places, and try to align these data and these sources of information to make sure that we can say, yes, under education, we have somehow some data that we can measure our progress with, or sometimes we don't have the data at all, or sometimes we have moderate level of data. So if you look at the SDG tracker, I may increase the zoom in here. So if I zoom in on this part of the screen and you look at education, quality education. I know it might not be very readable on your side, but you can see 3 colors, whether they are green, yellow, or red. If you have red color here, that doesn't mean that you have any data. And then green, you have at least satisfied level of data, and then yellow is in between, in the middle. Now, as you can see, we are not doing great. And this is also something that we have noticed by many speakers as well today, and also in the previous. We have missing data. We have unaligned data, not very well structured data in many situations, regardless where we are. In the Europe, in the state, in the UK, we have so many differences, disparities between different landscapes. Locally, we're talking about strategics and strategic plan. We're talking about also, let me just try to zoom in very quickly. We're talking about strategic plan. We're talking about how people try to behave in order to improve the education or the business or the healthcare systems and so on. And under each government, you'll find their own plan, their own strategies. Some of them will be having a little gap between their own and SDG 1, or some of them will be aligned in a better way. So let's just try to move on to the next screen and talk about this in a detailed way. So the global perspective, as you can see on the screen, is talking about worldwide view of what we see here. So regardless this number, just we need to think about the 17 SDGs here that we have. Don't look at education just by itself. Look at others as well, where we have lots of red colors here, which will stop us from getting where we need to get. So for example, if you're talking about poverty, large areas that we cannot address because a large number of them are in red, which means people with poverty, with less financial capabilities, there is a less potential for them to get a high quality education, to get high connection to the internet, and to be able to contribute to the society. So in my view, analyzing the SDG here, according to the numbers that we have, is not sufficient. We need to go back and see whatever I have, for example, in goal 12, which will impact me in goal 14 or SDG 14, it will stop me or it will make my work less effective. And this is one of the things that we do need to work together collaboratively to analyze the data and get a better understanding of this. The next one, when we talk about local perspective, and there's a reason why I'm putting this picture here, I'm gonna just give you this picture, give you a hint that there is a need for a picture here. And this picture, I'm gonna comment on this picture in a minute. Let's talk about local perspective. Here, the UK perspective. This is a plan that's developed by UK Department of Education. And this plan is just only given a very abstract view of what the UK will be doing in the next 5 years within their educational system. Okay, the plan is focused on a few points. I'll just highlight some of them. First of all, drive sustainable school improvement, create a clear and intelligent accountability, rigorous standard for curriculum, and also fair and access to the information. Fair access to the information, accessibility funding, and also access to the quality that we are looking for everyone. Okay, now, if you look at this very quickly, we can't analyze them in detail, but you can see still some of them are aligned with the SDG, but many of them are not. And if we even achieve our goals, achieve our vision here, we still have some considerable work to be done to be in a good position in the SDG. So this is another call for all the local experts to push more locally to get their governments aligned with the SDG overall challenges. Now let's talk about the education challenges from my own point of view as an expert in AI in education. So we have lots of this connectivity, and that connectivity works a lot for us in the previous years and the previous decade, but nowadays it's not. Why? Today's work, we are looking after skills rather than looking after knowledge in a very normal way. So we teach students at school, and then we teach them at universities, and then students leave universities to different places. We don't have any kind of linked record for X person, whether they are allowed to progress in their direction or not. We need to have that kind of things. And I do believe that the Dr. Nasser mentioned that in some of his points, that some of the experience are there, but we are not aware of where this is and how to document and how to approach this. Again, the stakeholders who receive our information, who receive our services, they are not receiving what we call a personalized learning experience. a personalized learning experience that means a lot for them and for their communities, okay? So it's not about learning, it's not about giving you a book and putting the book in front of your desk and say, this is the knowledge. No, this is not the knowledge. The learning is something that should be very well aligned and linked with your context. I can have a very nice shelf behind me, and I can have 100 books at least behind my shelf, but that doesn't mean that I've read any of them, yeah? Why? Because having access to the information does not mean that you have the information. And with the very, very mature knowledge that we have at the moment, and with the wide access to information, accessing the information that we need becomes really, really challenging. So I need an information about how to learn to resolve or solve mathematical equation. If I look for a book, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, I would find few books. And these books are really high quality if I go for reliable sources. But nowadays, if I just search online how to resolve or solve mathematical equation, I'll find possibly more than 1 million links, okay? Which one of these millions are the best for me, the best for my level, the best for my personality, for my overall games and so on, goals and aims and so on, okay? This is the first one. The second one is about the work balance. We focus more on education. Luckily in the UK, for example, we've seen some movement toward apprenticeship courses, toward internship, toward kind of life, education work balance, what we teach students, and also link our content with what we do in the market. But still, with that large number of initiatives, we still have some statistics telling us that 38 of our graduates by 2024 will not be able to meet the job skills, which is, for me, is a very, very horrific percentage. Now, if you are not able to meet the current, if I'm just graduating from university today and I can't have the access to the skills, then what's going to happen in the next couple of years? That is the future, where we are talking about almost half of the population. They are moving toward a place that they are having no idea about how to deal with. And that's the problem with the movement to AI. And I may use the word aggressive movement toward the AI, because, and I will come in a minute to the picture I've showed you, we have so many tasks that have been automated now. And even the way that we work, the way we produce the work, the way we describe the tasks that we deliver is no longer similar to what we have done in the past. For example, if you look at the new way or new form of economy, today's we used to get a degree, go to work, full-time job or part-time job, get the money and then survive or develop your skill and career from there. We have a concept in the UK, or possibly also across the world, the economy of gigs or gig economy, GIG, which refers to that many of us or many of our students at the moment, when they graduate, will never get a full-time job, not because they don't want to get a full-time job, but the full-time job is no longer there for many of them. It will be there for some, but it will be there only for some of them, not for all of them. Why? Because many of the work will be done by machine, many of the work will be done by freelancing jobs, okay? And they will be contracted and they do the work that they can do in the way that they want. So I pick up work from here and there depending on my capabilities, and then I produce that and I get that my profile, and I have that profile with me whenever I need to go for another consultancy job or another system. So in that way, future job is relying on, rather than relying on, for example, Rawad, because Rawad is a very expert in this domain. No, we have many expertise in our machine, in our systems, in our automated tool. Rawad will be only part of them. So I don't want to go more and talk about that. So very quickly, let's move on to the sustainable education to be model where we need to be. We need to give another role, a bigger role for the AI and experience. The only reason for that is we need to increase and enhance the customer experience and scale it up in the way that we want. And the reason for the pictures I've mentioned previously is because they are a real example for what we call generative AI, or we call them Gen AI. Well, you know, the generative AI, we were just asked the system to generate a picture for a very fancy classroom, and it will do that job for me without me designing that. So lots of designers will lose their job. Lots of teachers maybe will lose some part of the task that they do. But this is not to threaten people. No, this is to tell them AI will change the landscape. You need now to see how it's possible to develop your skills so you can use the capability of AI, and then you focus more on what machine cannot do. Leave the machine to do the job that they can do, and then we human will be better when we do things that machine cannot do. And this is the framework that I'm going to summarize everything with. So we'll focus more on technology, okay? And that technology should lead us to adaptive, flexible, and responsive learning environment. Some of these terminologies have been explained by my colleagues before me, so I'm not going to focus on them. We'll also look at the people where there are very valuable resources, or our HR process, human resources will completely change based on the nature of the tasks that they do, based on the nature of the skills that we also keeping them up with. The data-driven organization, we need to focus more on data. And I do believe that we have given really good interest in that, but at least now, we're not there yet. And also we need to improve the processes that we do. So if I have a technology now, and the technology is very effective, people may say, we don't want to apply it, or it doesn't work for us, or there is no way to regulate this process, so I'm not willing to apply this, because if anything wrong happen, I can't hold you accountable for this. I can't make you responsible for this. And finally, the institution itself should have what we call a long-term AI strategy, where in that strategy, they need to explain their processes, their generative AI, for example, as an example, the way they will be dealing with resources available to them, and also their goals and objective on the long run, how they deal with the dynamic and the changes nature of the work, and what is the role of the machine in their own future. Okay, there are others concerns that we need to meet, and here are some reflection for me and for other colleagues. AI is not just only the technology. AI is just only one part of the technology. We have virtual reality, which I'll explain through images at the moment. And the problem is AI now is working with virtual reality, is working with healthcare, is working with any different domain. So AI, if it's not developed well, if it's not regulated well, it could be the worst thing for our humanity. But if it's under really good control, it will generate something that we will all be proud of, like adaptive learning system, multimodal learning system, which I do personal research with the Artificial Intelligence Society for Education, which is a worldwide community that we lead research in that area. So we are proud of it. We promote it every time, but this is, again, does not allow us to close our eye on the risk that we have when we apply AI in any other domain. So the future where we're heading to, very promising future, but then again, need more work and need more concern to be liaised and handled as soon as we can. So we're heading toward immersed and highly connected world where universities may be unbundled. Unbundled mean I can maybe go to the University of Al-Marifa University, take a few courses from there, and then come back to East London and take another courses, and then learn something from a Accenture company, which is a practical kind of thing, and then bundle that in under my profile and say, this is what I have at the moment and I'm ready to go for work. Okay, university will no longer look at, I'm quite confident the next couple, let's just, in 10 years time, in 1 decade, the whole education system will see significant drastic changes. That's undoubted for me. There's no question about this. Now, maybe in a couple of decades, maybe someone like me would lose his job as an academic. We never know what's going to happen, but this is where we are doing. This is what we are trying to do now. Blockchain, using blockchain allow me to get a certificate here for a course that cannot be changed by anyone else. So if I use a blockchain-based system, which we have also done some research, we verify the courses using what we call smart contract. These are all, technical terminologies. I don't want to dig deep in them, but it's just showing us the powerful of the technology that we have at the moment. And it's just only the starting point. It's not the technology in its effective form. It's just only the starting point. So if this is the impact on education, what's going to be the impact on the job and employability, which we are doing all of this education system to get our student and our graduate ready to do that. So there are some guidance here that we can maybe possibly save the time to allow people to ask question and answer. And then these are some of the places, rather than saying this is a university, it will be somehow informal learning working space where we learn, work together, achieve something, and then all of that will be under our portfolios rather than BSc in computer science, master, and PhD. I'm not saying these degrees will end, but we'll have different multiple forms of the qualification that we may hold with us while we are going to anywhere to work or maybe to develop our skill further. So some of the learning skills will be transmitted in similar environment like this. It will no longer look like a class. You'll move from one place to another place. And that's my conclusion. Technology, whereas AI is the core of it, is the only way for our future. That's my conclusion. And sorry for being late. I've exceeded the time with 2 minutes, but lots of things to be transferred. So I'm going to mute myself and over to you, Prof. Joseph, if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.
There. Okay. I've been listening to the previous last two speakers, and they were talking about AI and focusing on education. I really am going to focus overall on AI as a means to an ends and some possible unintended consequences. And you mentioned my research on corruption and some unintended consequences I relate to corruption. The presentation is really geared toward looking at approaches to teaching and researching this particular topic. I consider that anyone going to either teach or research in this area would really benefit from reading two groundbreaking articles, which I just think are fantastic. The first one was in 2020 in Nature, and this was by 10 international interdisciplinary experts who looked at the 17 SDGs and tried to determine whether they thought they would be positively or negatively impacted by AI. It's an absolutely fascinating article. The second article is one that was just last year in 2022. And this one is appeared in Business and Society, and it's about the governance of AI. But the reason I'm really pointing this out, it has an absolutely excellent literature review of AI as how it's impacting the various SDGs. And it also has an excellent area that is designated as areas for future research. So when one reads these two articles, you become aware of the many different aspects of AI. For example, the Business and Society article cites 15 different definitions found in the literature today for AI. This slide looks at some of those particular ways that we look at it, because when we talk about AI, it is such an inclusive term. For example, some people look at it as the system's ability to interpret external data correctly. Others say it's the capacity of a machine to imitate human intelligent behavior. Others may look at it as a way of learning without being explicitly programmed to do so. Then there's others that just call it a branch of computer science dealing with simulation. But of course, recently, in the past 9 months, ChatGPT has really come on the scene. I think just about everyone has at least tried it 1 or 2 times. I know I have. It's lots of fun to see when you give it a prompt, how it's going to respond. I really find this is a fascinating thing. I haven't quite figured out how to use it yet, but I find it fun to play with. Now, AI is going to be used as a means to some ends. Now, you can start with the artificial intelligence. In other words, I know how to work this. Now, where can I use it? Or you can possibly do it the reverse of saying, why am I going to use this? What's the purpose? How is it going to be used? But in addition to looking at how you're going to use it, where it's going to be used, as one of the last questions in the previous session was, what are the resources needed to implement, to acquire, and to use the AI? Because we do know it is not just something in the air that you can pick up. And then there are also, one of the things I want to always caution people, there may be unintended consequences going along with it. Now, looking at slide 5, when we're talking about the purpose of AI, in this particular presentation, I'm talking about the SDGs, of course. But all of the SDGs are very, very general in nature and really can't be used as a specific objective to saying, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I think the 156 targets associated with the 17 SDGs are really much more actionable items. And one of the things that you can look at is which of these 156 targets could be enabled beneficially by some type of AI. And of course, you have to determine which type of AI would you use. And then you look at the possibility of, are there potential unintended consequences to this particular thing? Now, when you look at the 156 targets, the Nature article, and this is from, I extracted this information from the Nature article where those 10 researchers came up with how they thought AI would impact the 17 SDGs. But they looked at the 156 targets associated with the SDGs. And one of the things I have in this particular slide is showing how in some cases they feel that the positive will be definitely much greater than the negative. And it was very interesting listening to the last two sessions. The last two speakers, they talked about quality education. And if you look at the Nature article, they believe that 10 of the targets associated with quality education would be positively impacted by AI. And this was what the speakers were talking about, all the positive impacts of it. And one of the things you also see in SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, this was one where it was overwhelmingly positive, according to people, the experts that wrote the article for Nature. But one of the things that we really I'm going to talk about is the inequalities. SDG 10 asks that we reduce inequalities between countries and within countries. But there are some real negatives that are possibly associated with this one. Now, going on to the next slide, you're going to have to consider, as I said, the resources needed. And this was the last question that was asked, I think, the next to the last question that was asked in the last session, because various forms of artificial intelligence can be quite expensive. Some are relatively inexpensive. And ChatGPT, I think as long as you have a computer, you can go in and prompt and ask it something. But a lot of the AI requires massive amounts of capital. And these massive amounts of capital are only available to rich nations and well-funded organizations. So there's a real problem, as one of the questions in the last session was, how are the developing countries and the countries in Africa going to have the funds to mount and get the data needed? There's also the question of the skills and knowledge needed to implement and manage the AI. There's much of the AI I wouldn't know really how to operate. Some of the software programs I wouldn't know what to do with. I'm going to show you an example later in the presentation of a map, a satellite map, and I think it's absolutely wonderful, but I wouldn't know how to do it or use it. The estimates are today, AI currently uses about 1% of the total demand for electricity in the world. But estimates are, as we continue to increase our usage of AI, that may require up to 20% of the total demand for electricity worldwide. Stop and think about that. I don't think the electric grid can support that. I don't think we have a sufficient amount of power and energy available to support that much AI usage of it. And there's a question is, will there be less expensive forms of electricity and energy? Will we find more environmentally friendly, more green energy in the future? I'm really not particularly sure about that. Then you may have unintended consequences. I'm going to give a historical example of unintended consequences. Oh, because good intentions with worthy goals, like achieving SDGs, may bring harmful results. In some cases, too much of a good thing can have very bad consequences. And the historical example I referred to is from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, which was written in the 1700s. And he was talking about the introduction of machinery into the production process. And as he said, machinery was intended to increase productivity of labor. Oh, good. And with the goal of lowering the price of commodities so they'd be more affordable to more people. However, automation shifted corporate income to those who owned the companies from those who worked there. In other words, it created more inequality between owners of businesses and the workers. And we're seeing the difference in that today. But I also, 100 years after Adam Smith wrote his Wealth of Nations, Karl Marx in his Das Kapital wrote, I think it's sort of an interesting statement about machinery. He said, without a doubt, machinery has greatly increased the number of well-to-do idlers. As you can see, he was not particularly happy with what the unintended consequences of the introduction of machinery in the production process. And in the Nature article, even the experts agreed that AI has the potential to diminish the contribution and rewards of labor. This is one of the things you're seeing currently in the US. We have the screenwriters strike. And one of the things they're striking over, they're afraid that AI may take over their jobs and that there will be less possibility for employment in the movie and TV industry going along with it. Now I'd like to relate, giving one just example and going to pick one SDG if you were going to research and say, how can AI help SDG? And the one I chose was zero hunger to achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Now, there are 8 possible targets associated with this particular SDG. Now, I just selected 2 to talk about in this presentation. Target 2C is to assure the proper functioning of food commodity markets and their derivatives, and to facilitate timely market information. When you look at that, this seems just perfect for AI, because our information technology that we have today, that would just be wonderful. You could have blockchains, as was mentioned in the previous speaker's presentation. These could be wonderful ways to implement AI in achieving target 2C. The only negative I could see was possibly if there was some, as I said, corruption. If someone tried to corner the market on this, if someone wanted to disrupt the flow of information. But corruption is something that we're all going to have to contend with as we introduce AI. Now, there's another target with SDG 2, and this is to double the output of agricultural productivity of small-scale producers, particularly women, indigenous people, family farmers, etc., going along with it. This one, however, creates a real dilemma because it focuses on the small farmer and family farms, not on large commercial farms. However, most of the AI developed for agricultural purposes appears to be targeted more for the larger enterprises that have real potential to increase the productivity and profits of these large commercial operations. The next slide shows what one firm, Plainsight AI, offers to potential agricultural buyers. This is a US firm, Plainsight AI, which is based in California, and they advertise themselves, this is just from their website, AI for agricultural automation, AI focus on sustainable farming. Now, one of the things that we find is they said that this could really reduce inaccuracies. It would eliminate the need for costly manual inspections, that it could quickly increase efficiency, improve decision-making, empower the value chain. It could also yield higher processes and production and make farming more profitable, and eventually could lower the price of agriculture products for the entire population because they would be so efficient in operating. Now, one of the things they said that they could show, a third party that operates with this company does mapping. And when I said visual mapping that I couldn't interpret, this is a map of the upper Midwest. And you see these colors. The colors are based on the soil compositions and the climate when they're comparable. For example, the same color shows that the nutrients in this soil and the climate is the same if you have the same color. Now, I have no idea what the nutrients, the different colors represent, or even what the climate represents. But I do know that where I am currently located, which is in Chicago, which is right here, this little white spot, we don't grow much on concrete right now. So therefore, this is an interesting way of looking at it. Now, there's really possible inhibitors for small producers. And this goes along with what we were talking about before. Small scale food producers do not always have AI available to them. The cost may be prohibitive for them to automate their systems. And perhaps they don't have the technical skills to use the technology. Even if they can afford it, they may not be able to use it. It just may be impractical for small scale operations and really beneficial over to the large organizations. And another thing, remember I talked about the power needed to use AI? In many cases in Africa, they don't have the electricity available, these small farmers, to implement AI if it were available. The electricity, the energy is just not available. Now, there is possible one solution to that. And another company I found is Energy for Impact. This is an African firm which recently merged with a Mercy Corporation from the UK. And they're trying to help businesses and markets deliver energy across Africa. And one of the things they're working on is to develop small-scale solar irrigation system for the small farmer. If you notice the picture in the bottom here, this is from their website. It shows a farmer, a local woman farmer with her solar panel, which is transportable. Now, if they could get the irrigation systems up and running with solar power, they could produce more crops. And I think this is a real benefit. This company, Energy for Impact, is also producing an off-grid solar refrigeration system. This would allow the small farmer refrigeration to keep their crops or their produce until they could get it to market. The real question is, are these going to be enough? Will they really solve things for the small farmer that we're talking about in this target? Possible consequences are that small farmers aren't going to be able to compete with the large food producers using sophisticated AI. Even if the food producers could produce enough food for the entire world population and get the prices down so that we could all afford food. What is going to happen to the small producers? Could we find different uses for their land and their resources? I don't know. I don't know. Are there different opportunities for these small producers if they cannot compete with the large commercial farms? These are one of the things I'm talking about at unintended consequences. And this is producing a question. I don't have the answers to it. I have lots of questions. And we all know that the basis of all research is having questions. We want to find answers. We want to find solutions. And I hope my presentation has prompted some of you to say, I have an idea, maybe I could research this. And then I've accomplished my goal. So thank you very much.
I'm from Brazil, as Dr. Allam just said, and I'm the president of a nonprofit, Instituto Melhores Dias, and I have the pleasure to work for the last 30 years for disadvantaged communities, since Instituto Melhores Dias is a nonprofit. I am a founder member, and I have been evolving during this 30 years in a series of challenges that have been posed, not only that we already have, but that have arisen as COVID-19. So we work in all states of the country. Let me see yes, there we go. And we work, and the work we do is closely related to the 17 SDGs. And today I'm going to address just some of them because it'd be too long to speak of all of them, but also because they are interrelated, they are intertwined, as we people are in one planet, in one world. So let's start with Rio 1992, where it all started. The start, I was there in Rio in 1992 with the first Earth Summit that discussed the United Nations Conference. 20 years later, did the Rio +20, which I was also present. And in 2012, discussions began on what became 3 years later, in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the 2030 Agenda. So the focus today is to demonstrate initiatives from a Brazilian development organization on addressing the SDGs. We have been hearing from all those wonderful speakers about all of them. So by now, we all know much more than we did since the start of this conference. So let's think a little bit, how can we address them within the development context? Within a context where, as many said, there is no access to internet, there is no access to many of the facilities that would help to develop those SDGs. Let's start with number one, with no poverty. COVID-19 posed a real infliction in all of us, but especially in some of them, you know, in rural areas that are generally, rural areas are generally more difficult to reach and to work with. But on COVID-19, during COVID-19, the surroundings of the big towns and the not rural areas were the ones that lost most of their jobs, that have those informal jobs, cleaners, maids, street vendors, peddlers. And these people were at home and they could not, they did not have what to eat. So we were able, during the 2 years, to deliver monthly baskets to 1,500 families. And I can tell you that it made a huge difference, in their survival. So now some of them are getting back, and kids are back at school, so they have meal at school, and the families are not so much at risk because of that. So let's go for number 2, which is zero hunger. It's pretty connected, zero hunger with no poverty, but what we have done is we have been doing is to build school gardens, because the problem of stunting and wasting among children is very big, and it really increased during COVID-19 pandemic. Actually, we published with WASD this Food and Nutrition and Public Health in the journal, a survey that we did with the children, showing how much it had increased, and the access to food was really hard for these communities. So what we did is to build community and school gardens to make sure that the families had what to eat. The school gardens, when the schools were closed, all the gardens in schools, the produce would go to the community around the school. And of course, the community gardens, people had the access to come and go and pick up the vegetables and eat them. And that was really, I'm sorry, I'm doing a big mess here. Okay, and it was aligned with that. What we generally do is to teach nutritional education to the children, to the parents, to the teachers, to the cooks of the school, so they can cook meals that have what is grown in the garden. Because also with the pandemic-19, many people started, because it was cheaper, and they would satiate the hunger, eating ultra-processed food. And that has been, a terrible drawback in the health of and the nutrition of not only the children, but also the adults. Growing children now, a lot of them are obese and malnourished. They have anemia and obesity. And we have been targeting this with education, and also teaching them and providing gardens so they can eat better. The third goal is good health and well-being. Brazil has a very interesting public health program called Health Family Program. The Health Family Program, for each 1,000 families, there's one doctor, one nurse, one dentist, and 100 community health agents that visit the house and do the preventive health care. And so it's very important, because this community health agents enter into the house of the population, especially the outskirts, people that don't have access to pay for health insurance. So this is the public system. And I'll tell you, this is 80% of the country, so it's the big chunk of the population. So we trained these community health agents in vector, of course, on COVID-19 and everything, control vector-borne diseases like Zika, dengue, and many of them that are very happen a lot in the north and the northeast, and also in the south and in the whole country. But also we did some training in alcohol abuse prevention, because during the pandemic, it really rose the number of people drinking, especially the ones that were not working, they were home, and one thing leads to another, and the rise of alcohol abuse, of course, is also one of the reasons, not the only one, that it raised the violence inside the houses and against children. And then I'll go to the next one, it's gender equality. We still have a lot to go when talking about gender equality for women in Brazil and in many parts of the world. And we have been working in this project at Marajó Islands, right there at the top of Brazil. As you can see, this little point there, it's in the Amazon. It's a beautiful island, but it's far from everything. And most of the places don't have access to the internet. They have difficulty going around because it's a very big island. And we got a call that the incidence of violence and child abuse raised dramatically. So we went there and started a program with the community health agents and also with the, community health agents and all with teachers, because although during pandemic, the children were not in school, they had online lessons, but then we reached the wall. Most of the children did not have access to internet. So we had to rely on the community health agents. Of course, when they came back to school, we continued the program to make sure that they knew what self-esteem and self-care was so important, and that they would not be afraid of telling the teacher, who's the one closest to them when they are growing up, or the community health agent if anything had happened. So going back a little bit, when in the pandemic, the community health agents that goes to the house, so many of them saw problems like that, violence and child abuse. And some of them even said to us, we see it, but it's hard for us because we know the person, we live in the same community. He's an acquaintance, or maybe, a friend of a friend. How am I gonna, it is a tough decision. That's what we told them. It is a tough decision, but it's a mostly needed one. You gotta do it, even if it's, it's important. So growing that mind that the child's life, the women's life matters so much that you gotta see it and appoint it to the right people to do something about it. Right now, we have a program in São Paulo, which is, the capital, a big town, and we are also addressing violence and child abuse. So, of course, in Marajó Island, it was, the highest rates in country. But in São Paulo and everywhere, it also happens. And we have been dealing with it and trying to educate the communities on the importance of addressing it properly. When it goes to clean water and sanitation, almost 35 million people in Brazil live without treated water, and around 100 million do not have access to sewage, resulting in preventable illnesses and intestinal parasites and diarrheas that can lead to death also from contamination. So what we have done recently is to involve children and schools. And when I say schools and children, we also involve the parents, bring them. And we talk to the teachers, because the schools in Brazil are the institutions that really gather the population. That's where you can call the population, you know, it's a trusted institution. So we can, either rural or urban, it's a place where parents come and they are open to hear. So we from 58 schools, we did the environmental classes for 6,780 children in many states. And we did the conservation of 65 local water springs, providing access to clean water. This is a huge problem when there's pasture and the animals just walk through, you know, the water springs. Of course, they don't know better, but the owners of the lands do not protect the springs. So we had to map and talk to the landowners and convince them that it was important to let us provide that water spring would be properly planted around. So, you know, we planted many trees around each water spring and put a fence around it so that the animals would not again go and undo the job. So this is, you know, we talk about SDGs and there are many things we need to do, but this is a huge unfair world. As I say, it's an unfair country, Brazil. We have places where we have access to everything. And there are places where there are no access to anything. So unless, you know, the policymakers, the government, the youth that will be future policymakers and governments think about it, you know, we cannot live anymore because we are all in the same planet. So Instituto Melhores Dias has been supporting the United Nations Global Compact since 2019. So we are part of it. And our organization is founded on the principle that is through long-standing partnerships that we create sustainable and durable change in communities. And I'm gonna finish this with this beautiful picture of Rio with the, you know, the Jesus with his open arms, opening the arms for all of us, for these beautiful words that we have. And we are all part of it. Of course, we have to honor the place we come from, but we are in the same planet. And if we do not think of us as just one, this is not going to change much. You know, some few with access. This is, you know, the big organizations that think about globally have to change. Thank you.